We begin in the heart of early 20th century Europe, where gas lamps flicker over cobblestone streets, and the murmurs of intellectual ambition fill the air. Universities buzz with the excitement of discovery, professors debate heatedly over chalkboards scrawled with intricate equations, and the scent of ink and parchment seems to carry the weight of possibility itself. Among these corridors of thought, a young Albert Einstein moves with a quiet intensity, eyes bright with curiosity, mind restless, absorbing every nuance of the known universe yet yearning for what lies beyond. The world around him is orderly, predictable, and confident in its understanding of the laws that govern reality. Newton's principles seem unshakable, the movement of planets and the arc of projectiles mapped with near-sacred certainty. Scientists speak with authority, their voices imbued with a comforting assurance that the universe, in all its complexity, is ultimately comprehensible and knowable. Yet beneath this veneer of certainty, subtle anomalies stir. Small discrepancies in the behavior of light, the bending of starlight near the sun, phenomena that do not quite fit the established models, whisper that the universe might be more enigmatic than anyone has dared imagine. It is in these fissures, these glimpses of imperfection in the grand architecture of physics, that the seeds of a revolution quietly take root. Einstein senses them, though the world around him remains blissfully unaware. As he walks along the streets of Bern, the crisp morning air carrying the distant sounds of trams and horse-drawn carriages, the city itself seems to mirror the duality of the moment, outwardly ordinary, yet charged with unseen currents of possibility. Inside the patent office where he works, amid stacks of technical documents and bureaucratic minutiae, Einstein's mind is anything but ordinary. It drifts, unfettered, into realms of thought that defy convention. He imagines riding alongside a beam of light, questioning the very nature of time and space, daring to see the universe not as a fixed stage, but as a living, shifting tapestry. This section immerses the audience in the cinematic world of early Einstein, painting vivid contrasts between the familiar predictability of classical physics and the tantalizing hints of something profoundly disruptive. Viewers are invited to feel the tension of certainty on the brink of collapse, to sense the awe and fear inherent in the confrontation with ideas that stretch beyond imagination. Shadows of doubt creep along the edges of well-established knowledge, and the quiet intensity of a singular mind becomes the lens through which we glimpse the extraordinary possibilities ahead. Through sweeping visuals of lecture halls bathed in golden afternoon light, close-ups of furrowed brows over complex equations, and atmospheric shots of a city alive with ideas, the audience is transported into the intimate world of scientific discovery at a pivotal moment in history. The calm streets, the disciplined routines, the orderly classrooms, all serve to heighten the contrast when the first tremors of revolutionary thought begin to ripple through the fabric of understanding. The stage is set for a narrative that is at once deeply human and cosmically expansive, capturing the emotional resonance of genius confronting the unknown. As Einstein's thoughts wander, propelled by curiosity and an unyielding drive to comprehend, the seeds of the theory that would one day frighten even him are quietly sown. Small, almost imperceptible observations, a bending ray of light, the subtle flicker of an anomaly in a calculation, begin to accumulate, forming a mosaic of mystery that challenges everything the world believes it knows. The audience feels the thrill of discovery alongside him, the tension of stepping into uncharted intellectual territory where certainty dissolves and wonder reigns. By the end of this immersive introduction, viewers are fully enveloped in the cinematic world of early 20th century physics, intimately connected to Einstein's mind and the restless energy of a universe poised on the edge of revelation. The section establishes not only the historical and scientific context but also the emotional stakes, drawing the audience into a story of curiosity, courage, and the awe-inspiring confrontation with the unknown that will define the rest of the documentary. The world of physics at the turn of the 20th century seemed calm, confident, and complete. Classical mechanics, grounded in Newton's laws, had explained the movements of planets, the trajectories of cannonballs, and the motions of pendulums with unassailable precision. Scientists moved with the assurance of architects of a universe whose foundations were thought to be eternal and unshakable. Laboratories hummed with activity, yet there was a sense of order and control. Every experiment, every measurement reinforced the belief that the cosmos was predictable, that the laws of nature were as reliable as the rising sun. There was comfort in certainty, and for many, it seemed the pinnacle of understanding had been reached. Albert Einstein, however, did not share in this complacency. Even in the midst of the reassuring rhythm of daily life, he sensed subtle dissonances, anomalies that classical theory could not fully explain. He noticed the peculiar behavior of light in a vacuum, the unexplained warmth of radiation from heated bodies, and the inconsistencies in the ether theories that had dominated scientific thought for decades. These small irregularities, almost invisible against the vast canvas of established knowledge, began to stir a quiet unrest in his mind. The world appeared orderly on the surface, yet beneath, there were currents of uncertainty that few dared to confront. In this section, the audience is transported into the everyday life of Einstein and the broader scientific community before the storm of revolutionary ideas. The narrative draws attention to the contrast between the comforting predictability of classical physics and the subtle hints that this understanding might be incomplete. We walk alongside Einstein in the streets of Bern, through the halls of universities, and inside the meticulous environments of laboratories. The cinematography evokes a sense of stability, rows of desks, the soft rustle of papers, the ticking of clocks, but always hints at the tension simmering just beneath. Shadows linger in corners, shafts of light illuminate chalk-dusted blackboards, and the camera lingers on the fleeting moments when the ordinary hints at the extraordinary. Einstein's own life mirrors this duality. At the patent office, his days are filled with the meticulous evaluation of technical inventions, a world of rules, procedures, and clarity. Yet his mind wanders far beyond the office walls, drawn to abstract problems that challenge the very notions of space, time, and reality. It is here, in the quiet moments between reviewing mechanical patents, that his imagination begins to roam freely. He contemplates the nature of light, the possibility that space and time are not absolute, and the mysterious interactions between energy and matter. The calm, almost mundane routine of his external world contrasts sharply with the tempest of ideas swirling inside his mind, creating a cinematic tension that engages the audience on both intellectual and emotional levels. The section also explores the scientific environment surrounding Einstein, capturing the human dimension of discovery. Professors lecture with authority, students nod along in agreement, and debates flourish, but most minds remain tethered to the old certainties. The audience witnesses the paradox of progress. Brilliant individuals striving to expand understanding while constrained by tradition and the invisible weight of consensus. Letters, diaries, and archival materials are evoked through cinematic reenactments, giving viewers a sense of intimacy and immediacy, allowing them to feel the pulse of a community unaware that its foundations are about to be challenged. Through rich visual storytelling, the audience experiences the duality of calm and anticipation. Exterior shots of the city, bathed in golden light, evoke stability and routine, while interior shots of bustling laboratories and intimate study rooms hint at the restless curiosity that will soon erupt into revolutionary thought. The cinematography emphasizes textures, the chalk on blackboards, the intricate gears of mechanical devices, the slight tremor of a hand sketching a formula, immersing viewers in a tactile, cinematic world. This contrast mirrors the narrative tension between the known and the unknown, between comfort and disruption, and primes the audience for the intellectual upheaval to come. As the narrative unfolds, subtle foreshadowing intensifies. Discussions of unresolved problems, scientific conferences filled with polite skepticism, and the whispered speculations of young physicists create a sense of unease. The audience begins to sense the fragility of the seemingly solid edifice of classical physics. The calm before the storm is punctuated by moments of wonder and curiosity. Einstein watching a ray of light dance across a window pane, the intricate motion of clockwork mechanisms, the reflection of sunlight on rippling water. These seemingly ordinary observations plant the seeds of revolutionary insight, hinting at the ideas that will soon shatter established understanding. By the end of this immersive section, viewers are fully grounded in the world that Einstein inhabited, appreciating both the comfort of classical certainty and the subtle tensions that signal its fragility. They feel the anticipation of discovery, the thrill of curiosity, and the dramatic potential of ideas that will challenge not only physics but the very way humanity perceives reality. The stage is set for the profound and unsettling journey ahead, drawing the audience deeper into the story of a universe on the brink of transformation, and a mind poised to confront the unimaginable. Subtle cracks were appearing in the edifice of classical physics, and Albert Einstein, with his relentless curiosity, was among the first to notice them. These were not dramatic explosions of contradiction, but small, almost imperceptible anomalies, tiny deviations, inconsistencies in the way light behaved, the unexpected outcomes in radiation experiments, the stubborn questions that resisted neat solutions. They whispered of a universe that was far stranger than the smooth, predictable realm Newton had described. While many of his contemporaries dismissed these irregularities as experimental error or minor inconveniences, Einstein's mind recognized them as signposts pointing toward something profoundly unsettling, something that demanded to be understood. In the hushed halls of the patent office, where he spent his days evaluating mundane inventions, Einstein's imagination roamed far beyond the confines of gears and pulleys. He began to ponder thought experiments, mental journeys that defied physical limitations. One of his most famous contemplations involved riding alongside a beam of light, imagining the universe from that impossible vantage point. In this mental exploration, the ordinary laws of motion seemed insufficient. The classical assumptions of absolute time and space began to unravel, and Einstein glimpsed a reality that contradicted everything he had been taught to believe. This section immerses the audience in these moments of cognitive daring, capturing both the wonder and the quiet tension of a mind confronting the limits of comprehension. The anomalies themselves were scattered across multiple fronts. The behavior of blackbody radiation, for instance, did not align with classical predictions. The ultraviolet catastrophe threatened to expose fatal flaws in the established models. The photoelectric effect, wherein light ejected electrons from metal surfaces, could not be explained without invoking a radical new understanding of light itself. Meanwhile, the ether, long assumed to be the medium through which light propagated, stubbornly refused to reveal itself in experiments like those conducted by Michelson and Morley. Each anomaly was a small fracture in the wall of certainty, and for Einstein, they were tantalizing clues to a universe far more complex and nuanced than anyone had imagined. Cinematically, this section alternates between the quiet intimacy of Einstein's solitary reflections and the bustling energy of scientific discourse. We see him hunched over a desk, chalk in hand, sketching impossible scenarios on paper, juxtaposed against lecture halls filled with the polite nods of professors still clinging to classical orthodoxy. The contrast emphasizes both the isolation of genius and the tension between the comfortable assumptions of the many and the unsettling questions of the few. Shadows stretch across blackboards covered in equations. Sunlight glances off scattered papers. Clocks tick relentlessly, marking time that may not be as absolute as it seems. Every visual element reinforces the growing sense of unease and curiosity, making the abstract tangible, immersive, and emotionally resonant. The section also delves into Einstein's intellectual process, exploring how he connected these disparate anomalies into a coherent line of questioning. His approach was not merely analytical but profoundly imaginative. He relied on intuition as much as calculation. Each observation, no matter how small, was weighed, compared, and contemplated. The narrative emphasizes the deliberate patience and meticulous thought behind his work, allowing the audience to witness the painstaking process through which a revolutionary mind discerns patterns invisible to others. Emotional language captures the mixture of excitement, anxiety, and awe he experienced as he pieced together the first hints of a theory that would challenge reality itself. Beyond the laboratory and office, the world seemed to mirror these tensions. The streets of Bern and the lecture halls of Europe remained orderly, but there were undercurrents of change, new discoveries in electromagnetism, experiments on radiation, and the growing influence of experimental physics hinted at a paradigm in flux. Einstein's thoughts intersected with these developments, yet his perspective was uniquely daring. He was willing to entertain the unthinkable, to imagine that time might bend, that space might be relative, that reality might operate under rules no one had yet conceived. The audience is drawn into these mental landscapes, experiencing the thrill and apprehension of stepping into a realm where certainty dissolves. Cinematic storytelling in this section employs contrast framing to heighten emotional engagement. Close-up shots of trembling hands sketching equations alternate with wide, awe-inspiring visuals of the cosmos, illustrating the tension between microscopic thought experiments and the grandeur of the universe. Sound design emphasizes subtle cues, the scratch of chalk, the hum of a laboratory, the distant clang of city life, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. The narrative encourages viewers to empathize with the emotional stakes of discovery, the fear of being wrong, the exhilaration of insight, and the quiet, insistent pull of curiosity that drives human understanding forward. By the end of this section, the audience grasps both the fragility of classical assumptions and the magnitude of the questions that Einstein is beginning to wrestle with. The anomalies, the thought experiments, the meticulous reasoning, all coalesce into the first glimmers of a new way of seeing the universe. Viewers are left with a sense of awe, tension, and anticipation, fully immersed in the mind of a man on the brink of uncovering truths that will challenge not only physics but the very nature of reality itself. The stage is set for the next phase of intellectual upheaval, where the theory that would eventually scare Einstein begins to take form, and the calm certainty of the old world begins to crumble. The dawn of the 20th century marked a seismic shift in our understanding of the universe, and at the center of this upheaval was the birth of quantum theory. The world of physics, long dominated by the certainties of Newtonian mechanics, now faced phenomena that seemed almost impossibly strange. Particles appeared to exist in multiple states at once. Energy could leap in discrete quanta rather than flow continuously, and the act of observation itself seemed to influence the outcome of experiments. This section immerses the audience in the emergence of a field that would shatter old assumptions, blending cinematic imagery with philosophical and scientific wonder. We begin with the pioneering experiments that defied classical explanation. Blackbody radiation, a persistent enigma, emitted energy in ways that no one could predict with the old laws. Max Planck, in a moment of radical insight, proposed that energy is not infinitely divisible but quantized, emitted in discrete packets he called quanta. This idea, revolutionary in its simplicity, sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The audience witnesses the tension between the comfort of familiar laws and the unsettling elegance of a new framework that seems almost magical in its implications. Cinematically, we see Planck's lab, amber light filtering through dusty windows, glass apparatus shimmering with faint reflections, chalkboards filled with cryptic symbols that hint at a universe operating under unfamiliar rules. The visual contrast between the mundane and the extraordinary mirrors the conceptual shift taking place in the scientific mind. Albert Einstein, ever attuned to the anomalies that others dismissed, recognized the profound implications of Planck's work. In 1905, he applied the concept of quantization to the photoelectric effect, proposing that light itself is composed of discrete particles, later known as photons. This was not just an incremental adjustment to theory, it was a fundamental challenge to centuries of assumption about the nature of light. The narrative draws viewers into Einstein's thought process, the exhilaration of insight, the tension of confronting ideas that defy intuition, and the emotional stakes of pushing against the established consensus. Through intimate cinematography, we see him pacing, writing equations, erasing and rewriting, the mental turbulence reflected in the physicality of his gestures. Quantum theory, however, was not merely a technical adjustment, it was a philosophical earthquake. Classical physics assumed determinism. If the positions and velocities of all particles were known, the future could, in principle, be calculated with perfect accuracy. Quantum mechanics shattered that notion. Probability replaced certainty, observation altered outcomes, and the universe revealed itself as fundamentally unpredictable at the smallest scales. To convey this visually, the section employs sequences of particles jittering, colliding, and existing in overlapping states, overlaid with haunting, ethereal soundscapes that evoke both wonder and unease. The audience begins to feel, almost viscerally, the tension between the predictability of the macroscopic world and the eerie indeterminacy of the quantum realm. The human dimension of this scientific revolution is equally compelling. We witness the debates, the letters, and the salons where physicists grappled with these unsettling ideas. Some embraced the new paradigm with enthusiasm, reveling in the imaginative possibilities it opened. Others, like Einstein himself, experienced a profound discomfort, sensing that the universe was slipping into realms both beautiful and terrifying. Through cinematic reenactments, the audience is drawn into these intellectual confrontations. The furrowed brows, the impassioned gestures, the quiet moments of contemplation that reveal the emotional weight of discovery. Contrast framing, hope versus fear, curiosity versus doubt, keeps the tension high, inviting viewers to experience the stakes of knowledge as deeply as the scientists themselves. This section also explores the visual and conceptual language that quantum theory demands. Particles are no longer merely points on a graph. They are dynamic, probabilistic entities, existing in clouds of possibility. Energy is not a smooth continuum but a series of discrete leaps. The act of measurement is no longer passive but participatory, as if the observer is entangled with the observed. Cinematic techniques convey these abstractions. Slow-motion sequences of photons bouncing off surfaces, superimposed visualizations of probability waves, and ethereal animations of electrons in orbitals. Each frame immerses the audience in the strangeness and beauty of a world that operates under rules almost alien to human intuition. The emotional narrative threads throughout this section are crucial. We see the exhilaration of discovery, the trepidation of confronting paradox, and the awe inspired by a universe far more intricate than classical models could account for. The section emphasizes the human response to the incomprehensible: wonder, fear, stubborn curiosity, and relentless pursuit of understanding. Einstein, poised at the intersection of theory and observation, embodies this tension, his reactions offering the audience both a mirror and a guide into the complexities of quantum reality. As the section draws to a close, viewers are left suspended between revelation and anticipation. The quantum world has been introduced, not as a static body of knowledge, but as a dynamic, mysterious, and emotionally charged domain that challenges the very notion of certainty. The seeds of intellectual upheaval have been sown, and the audience senses that the journey into the unthinkable, into the ideas that would frighten even Einstein, is only beginning. Cinematically, the final images linger, particles shimmering, equations unfurling like constellations, shadows and light weaving a tapestry of a universe in flux. The stage is now set for the dramatic confrontations, philosophical dilemmas, and mind-bending revelations that will follow. The early decades of the 20th century were marked not only by extraordinary discoveries but also by extraordinary tensions. As quantum theory began to take shape, it collided head-on with the classical intuitions that had guided physics for centuries. Albert Einstein, a towering figure of intellect and curiosity, found himself at the center of this storm, confronting ideas that both fascinated and unsettled him. This section delves into the clash of minds that defined the era, capturing the intellectual drama and emotional intensity of scientists grappling with a universe more mysterious than ever imagined. Einstein's brilliance was matched by his stubbornness, a combination that made him both a revolutionary thinker and a vocal critic. He admired the elegance of mathematical formulations but was uneasy with interpretations of reality that seemed to surrender to probability and uncertainty. His debates with contemporaries such as Niels Bohr were not merely academic, they were philosophical duels, battles over the very nature of truth and existence. Cinematically, these confrontations are brought to life through intimate reconstructions, the sharp gestures of hands over chalkboards, the intensity of furrowed brows, the rapid exchanges of letters brimming with conviction and doubt. The audience is drawn into these moments, feeling the tension of ideas colliding at the highest levels of human thought. The conflict was stark and multifaceted. On one side, proponents of the new quantum mechanics embraced the radical implications of uncertainty, probability, and wave-particle duality. Bohr, Heisenberg, and Schrödinger reveled in a universe that defied deterministic expectations, where observation shaped reality and certainty dissolved into elegant mathematical probabilities. On the other side, Einstein clung to a vision of a cosmos governed by orderly, comprehensible laws. His famous declaration that God does not play dice epitomized the tension between human desire for understanding and the unsettling strangeness of nature's fundamental behavior. This contrast frames the narrative, keeping viewers emotionally engaged as they witness the collision of hope, fear, and intellectual rigor. The section explores these debates not as abstract arguments but as deeply human dramas. We see Einstein traveling to conferences, walking through corridors thick with anticipation, letters in hand, delivering lectures that challenge the prevailing orthodoxy. The reactions of his colleagues range from admiration to exasperation, capturing the high stakes of questioning not just equations but the very nature of reality itself. Through cinematic imagery, shadows stretching across lecture halls, the flicker of candlelight reflecting off handwritten manuscripts, the palpable tension in crowded auditoriums, the audience experiences the drama of scientific confrontation as vividly as any historical thriller. Beyond the personal clashes, the intellectual stakes could not have been higher. Quantum mechanics implied that the universe at its core is probabilistic, unpredictable, and profoundly counterintuitive. For Einstein, accepting such a framework meant surrendering the comforting absolutes that had long anchored human understanding. Yet he could not ignore the mounting evidence. Experiments confirmed predictions, phenomena resisted classical explanation, and the edifice of Newtonian certainty wavered. The narrative conveys this tension through contrast framing, the comfort of the known versus the allure and terror of the unknown, certainty versus paradox, classical order versus quantum chaos. The audience is invited to feel the same awe, anxiety, and exhilaration that gripped the world's greatest minds. The personal dimension of these intellectual clashes is further enriched by examining the relationships between the scientists. Bohr and Einstein shared a deep respect, yet their philosophical divides were profound. Letters and debates reveal moments of vulnerability, frustration, and rare insight, humanizing figures often seen only through the lens of genius. Cinematic techniques amplify this intimacy. Close-ups on expressive eyes, lingering shots of pens hovering over paper, the soft rustle of pages as ideas are tested and contested. The audience senses not only the magnitude of the scientific stakes but also the emotional weight carried by the individuals who dared to confront the mysteries of the universe. This section also illustrates the evolving landscape of physics itself. Laboratories buzzed with experiments, conferences brimmed with anticipation, and new technologies enabled the observation of phenomena that had previously been invisible. The tension between theory and experiment is palpable. As experimentalists confirmed the predictions of quantum mechanics, theorists were forced to reconcile their models with reality. Visual storytelling emphasizes this dynamic, juxtaposing the precise machinery of laboratories with the abstract elegance of equations on blackboards. The cinematic effect immerses the audience in the high-stakes environment where ideas, evidence, and human emotion intersect. By the end of this section, viewers understand the depth of the intellectual and emotional struggle surrounding the birth of quantum mechanics. Einstein's resistance is not mere obstinacy but a profound engagement with the implications of a universe that defies intuition. The audience is left with a sense of dramatic tension. The comfort of classical certainty is fading, the quantum revolution is surging forward, and the clash of titanic minds has only just begun. Cinematically, the final images linger on the furrowed brow of Einstein, the glowing apparatus of a laboratory experiment, and the abstract, shifting patterns of particles, leaving viewers both awed and unsettled, poised for the next stage of revelation. The theory that would come to haunt Einstein, the idea that would provoke both fascination and fear, emerges from the swirling chaos of scientific discovery and philosophical questioning. At first, it was nothing more than a subtle pattern noticed in the equations, an anomaly that refused to conform to existing principles. Yet as Einstein and his contemporaries pursued it, the theory revealed itself as something profoundly radical, something that did not merely tweak the known laws of physics but challenged the very foundation upon which reality had been understood. This section immerses the audience in the birth of that unthinkable idea, weaving together cinematic visuals, philosophical tension, and the human drama of confronting a universe that defies expectation. At the heart of the theory was the unsettling notion that reality is not as deterministic or continuous as previously assumed. While classical physics envisioned a clockwork universe, precise and predictable, the emerging framework suggested that at fundamental levels, nature operated in discrete steps, governed by probabilities and subject to limitations imposed by observation. Einstein, who had spent his life seeking clarity and universal truth, was both captivated and disturbed by these revelations. The narrative emphasizes this tension, illustrating through vivid cinematic imagery the contrast between the comforting order of the classical world and the jagged, probabilistic landscape of the new theory. Einstein's approach was methodical, rigorous, and deeply imaginative. He explored thought experiments that stretched the boundaries of comprehension, visualizing the behavior of particles and energy under conditions impossible to replicate in a laboratory. These mental journeys were cinematic in themselves. Photons behaving like both particles and waves, electrons existing in multiple states simultaneously, and light bending and warping in ways that challenged intuition. Through these sequences, the audience experiences the eerie beauty of a universe in flux, where certainty gives way to possibility and the familiar laws of cause and effect are called into question. The theory's implications were staggering. It suggested that observation could influence outcomes, that time and space were not immutable, and that reality itself might be a more fluid and complex construct than anyone had dared imagine. These concepts are brought to life through cinematic techniques. Slow-motion sequences of interacting particles, superimposed waves of probability, and visual metaphors for uncertainty and transformation. Sound design reinforces the emotional impact, blending subtle hums, whispers, and resonant tones that evoke the tension of confronting the unknown. The audience is drawn into the emotional landscape of discovery, feeling both awe and apprehension as the theory unfolds. Einstein's personal reaction to the theory underscores its extraordinary nature. While he recognized its mathematical elegance and explanatory power, he was uneasy with the philosophical consequences. The theory implied a universe in which chance, rather than certainty, played a fundamental role, a notion that struck at the core of his intellectual and emotional sensibilities. The narrative explores this internal conflict, portraying moments of hesitation, reflection, and even despair. Close-up shots of furrowed brows, hands tracing equations, and eyes staring into the distance convey the weight of a mind wrestling with the unimaginable. The human dimension of this scientific revolution is further emphasized through the interactions between Einstein and his peers. Letters, debates, and personal reflections reveal both admiration and skepticism. Colleagues praised the ingenuity of the theory while simultaneously grappling with its counterintuitive implications. Cinematic reenactments of conferences and meetings capture the intensity of these exchanges. The rapid-fire discussion of concepts, the careful articulation of objections, and the mutual fascination that drives collaboration and conflict alike. This contrast between awe and apprehension, excitement and doubt, mirrors the emotional journey of the audience as they confront the theory alongside its creators. Beyond the human drama, the section explores the profound impact of the theory on the scientific worldview. Classical assumptions about determinism, continuity, and objective reality were no longer sufficient. Experiments increasingly confirmed predictions that seemed almost magical: particles behaving unpredictably, energy manifesting in quantized bursts, and the act of measurement shaping the observed phenomena. Through cinematic visualization, these abstract concepts are made tangible. Electrons appear as shimmering clouds, light fractures into discrete pulses, and the very fabric of space seems to bend and ripple in response to observation. The audience is invited to experience the beauty, complexity, and disquieting strangeness of a universe that defies expectation. As the section progresses, the narrative emphasizes the growing tension between fascination and fear. Einstein's intellectual courage drives him to explore the theory fully, yet its philosophical and existential implications weigh heavily. The cinematic approach alternates between sweeping vistas of cosmic scale and intimate, personal moments of reflection, reinforcing the contrast between the grandeur of discovery and the vulnerability of the individual mind confronting the unknown. This duality heightens emotional engagement, allowing viewers to empathize with the challenges and exhilaration of pushing the boundaries of human understanding. By the conclusion of this section, the audience grasps the magnitude of the theory that frightened Einstein. It is not merely a set of equations or abstract concepts. It is a lens that reveals a universe more intricate, unpredictable, and profoundly mysterious than anyone had previously imagined. The section leaves viewers suspended between revelation and anticipation, emotionally and intellectually invested in the unfolding drama of discovery. Cinematic imagery lingers, particles shimmering in uncertain motion, equations unfolding like constellations, and Einstein himself poised between comprehension and bewilderment, setting the stage for the next chapter in the narrative of science confronting the unimaginable. The moment the implications of the new theory fully emerged, the very foundations of reality seemed to tremble. Classical physics, with its orderly predictability, had offered a comforting certainty. If one knew the positions and velocities of all objects, the future could, in principle, be calculated. But the theory that began to terrify Einstein suggested a universe far more enigmatic. One in which chance, uncertainty, and paradox were not anomalies but fundamental features. This section plunges the audience into the conceptual maelstrom of a reality reshaped, where time, space, and causality are no longer absolute, and the rules that govern the cosmos are both stranger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. At the heart of this upheaval was the realization that the microscopic world does not obey the neat predictability of macroscopic intuition. Electrons do not follow defined paths. Photons may behave as both waves and particles, and the act of observation itself influences outcomes. Cinematically, the audience is invited to visualize these mysteries through dynamic sequences: particles flickering into and out of existence, probability clouds shifting with imperceptible currents, and light bending through unseen forces, all rendered with a sense of both wonder and unease. The imagery conveys not only the strangeness of these phenomena but also their profound philosophical significance. Reality itself is no longer a fixed stage but an unfolding interplay of potentialities. Einstein's personal confrontation with these ideas underscores the human stakes of this intellectual revolution. While he marveled at the predictive power and elegance of the equations, he struggled to reconcile them with his deeply held belief in a comprehensible, ordered universe. The narrative explores his internal conflict in cinematic detail: solitary walks through quiet streets, chalk-stained hands hovering over complex calculations, eyes reflecting both awe and anxiety. The contrast between external calm and internal tumult mirrors the broader tension in physics itself, highlighting the emotional and philosophical weight of facing a reality that defies conventional understanding. The section also examines the broader scientific community's grappling with the unsettling consequences of the theory. Some embraced the probabilistic and counterintuitive nature of quantum mechanics, finding in it a liberating expansion of possibility. Others, like Einstein, approached it with skepticism and philosophical resistance, questioning whether the universe could truly operate on principles so seemingly random. The tension between acceptance and doubt is portrayed through cinematic reconstructions of conferences, debates, and letters exchanged among leading physicists. The audience experiences the intensity of these intellectual battles, feeling the high stakes of reconciling theory, experiment, and intuition. One of the most profound conceptual shifts involved the nature of time itself. No longer an immutable backdrop against which events unfolded, time began to reveal its relative, malleable character. Space and time were intertwined, bound together in a dynamic continuum that could stretch, contract, and warp. This realization challenges the audience to reimagine familiar notions of cause and effect, sequence, and the flow of experience. Through sweeping visuals of cosmic expanses, clocks distorting and celestial bodies moving in unfamiliar trajectories, the documentary immerses viewers in the disorienting yet awe-inspiring consequences of a universe in which the rules are fluid and perception intimately entwined with reality. Equally transformative was the erosion of deterministic predictability. In classical mechanics, every action had a predictable reaction. In the quantum realm, probability replaces certainty. The audience witnesses this shift through cinematic metaphors. Dice rolling through shadowed landscapes, electrons branching into multiple possibilities, and outcomes unfolding in shimmering, unpredictable patterns. These sequences evoke both fear and fascination, allowing viewers to viscerally feel the philosophical implications of a world in which outcomes are not preordained but contingent, delicate, and astonishingly intricate. The narrative also emphasizes the emotional resonance of grappling with such profound change. For Einstein, the beauty of the theory's mathematical framework was inseparable from the existential discomfort it engendered. The documentary portrays his internal struggle through quiet, reflective moments. Sitting alone in a study lined with books, pen poised over paper yet hesitant to commit, or gazing out a window as sunlight fractures across the floor, hinting at the unpredictable patterns underlying apparent order. These cinematic vignettes invite the audience to empathize with the tension of confronting the incomprehensible, blending human drama with the grandeur of scientific discovery. Throughout the section, contrast framing sustains engagement. The calm, predictable world of classical physics is juxtaposed with the volatile, probabilistic universe revealed by the new theory. Moments of clarity alternate with confusion, certainty with paradox, and the familiar with the astonishingly strange. This interplay maintains emotional tension, immersing viewers in both the intellectual challenges and the existential wonder of encountering a cosmos that refuses to conform to prior expectations. By the end of this section, the audience is fully immersed in a world where reality itself is unstable, fluid, and deeply mysterious. The theory that unsettled Einstein has not only challenged the established rules of physics but also transformed the philosophical landscape, raising questions about causality, perception, and the very nature of existence. Cinematic imagery lingers on shifting probability clouds, warping light, and the contemplative figure of Einstein, inviting viewers to share in both awe and apprehension. The stage is now set for the ongoing struggle between acceptance and resistance, between the exhilaration of discovery and the fear of a universe that defies comprehension. Einstein's journey through the uncharted territory of quantum theory was not only an intellectual expedition but a profound emotional struggle. The theory that enthralled and terrified the scientific community confronted him with dilemmas that went far beyond equations and laboratory results. It questioned his deeply held beliefs about determinism, reality, and the very structure of the universe. In this section, the audience is drawn intimately into Einstein's resistance, witnessing the tension between his admiration for the elegance of mathematics and his discomfort with the philosophical implications of a universe governed by uncertainty. The narrative explores the human side of genius, portraying a mind both relentless in curiosity and deeply protective of conceptual coherence. Einstein's skepticism was neither stubborn nor arbitrary, it was rooted in a fundamental philosophical commitment to a comprehensible universe. He sought patterns, laws, and structures that could explain nature without invoking randomness at its core. The emerging quantum framework, however, suggested that probability, not certainty, was central to the behavior of matter and energy. Cinematically, this internal conflict is illustrated through scenes of solitary reflection. Einstein pacing through dimly lit rooms, chalk in hand, formulas scrawled across blackboards yet never fully satisfying the mind that demanded logical consistency. Close-ups capture the subtle furrow of his brow, the tension in his hands, the quiet intensity of a mind wrestling with ideas that are as unsettling as they are beautiful. The audience is also immersed in the dialogues and debates that defined Einstein's resistance. Exchanges with Niels Bohr and other pioneers of quantum mechanics are rendered as intellectual duels, each argument a clash of philosophical perspectives as much as scientific ones. Bohr, with his daring embrace of uncertainty and probabilistic laws, represents the thrill and liberation of a universe unconstrained by classical assumptions. Einstein, in contrast, embodies caution and rigor, emphasizing the need for clarity, determinism, and conceptual integrity. Through cinematic framing, these debates are visualized as tension-filled rooms, dramatic gestures over equations, and animated thought sequences that bring abstract ideas to life. Viewers feel the stakes not only intellectually but emotionally, sensing the urgency and gravity of these philosophical confrontations. Einstein's resistance was also a deeply personal journey. He grappled with the anxiety of confronting a reality that seemed to elude understanding, the fear that the universe might be fundamentally unknowable. These emotional undertones are emphasized through cinematic storytelling, quiet walks in shadowed streets, dim lamplight reflecting off papers, and lingering shots of eyes staring into the void of contemplation. The narrative conveys the delicate balance between fascination and apprehension, highlighting the courage required to challenge both one's own assumptions and the prevailing scientific consensus. Yet, despite his resistance, Einstein's engagement with quantum theory was active and rigorous. He proposed thought experiments, clever, imaginative tests designed to expose the limits or paradoxes of the theory. His famous EPR, Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, for instance, was crafted to demonstrate what he saw as incompleteness in the quantum framework. Cinematically, these moments are portrayed with intensity, the flicker of candlelight illuminating calculations, diagrams unfolding like visual metaphors, and the mind's eye projecting possibilities and contradictions in an almost tangible form. The audience is invited to follow his reasoning, feeling both the thrill of intellectual challenge and the tension of unresolved questions. The section also situates Einstein's resistance within the broader scientific and philosophical landscape. Other physicists were increasingly accepting the counterintuitive principles of quantum mechanics, while Einstein remained a principled outlier. This contrast frames the narrative tension, the exhilaration of discovery for some juxtaposed with the discomfort and doubt of others, emphasizing the emotional stakes of pioneering thought. Visual sequences underscore this divergence. Groups of animated discussions, papers exchanged across continents, and moments of solitary contemplation that reveal both isolation and determination. Emotional resonance is heightened by exploring Einstein's human vulnerabilities. His resistance is not portrayed as obstinacy but as an authentic engagement with ideas that threaten the very fabric of his understanding. The audience is encouraged to empathize with his struggle, the fear of error, the longing for clarity, the awe of confronting the profound complexity of the universe. Cinematic techniques, slow pans over scattered equations, deep focus on reflective gazes, and the subtle interplay of light and shadow, create an immersive experience that communicates the weight of these intellectual and emotional challenges. By the end of this section, viewers are fully immersed in Einstein's complex relationship with the new theory. They understand his skepticism as a profound philosophical stance, one that balances admiration for mathematical elegance with insistence on conceptual coherence. The narrative conveys both the human and intellectual dimensions of his resistance, allowing the audience to feel the emotional stakes of a mind confronting uncertainty, paradox, and the unknown. Cinematic imagery lingers, chalkboards filled with equations, the solitary figure of Einstein contemplating the cosmos, and the tension between light and shadow, all evoking the drama of one of history's greatest thinkers wrestling with a universe that refuses to be fully tamed. The quantum revolution, once a distant whisper of theoretical possibility, had become a tidal wave transforming physics and reshaping the way humanity perceives reality. By the time Einstein's resistance reached its peak, experimental confirmations of quantum principles were mounting, forcing even the most skeptical minds to confront the undeniable truths revealed in laboratories and observatories. This section immerses the audience in the exhilaration and disruption of the quantum revolution, blending cinematic storytelling with the human drama of scientists grappling with a universe that defies classical intuition. At the forefront of this revolution were experiments that exposed the extraordinary behavior of matter and energy. The photoelectric effect, observed as light knocked electrons from metal surfaces, revealed the particle-like nature of photons. Electrons and atoms did not orbit predictably as once believed, but existed in probabilistic clouds, their positions and velocities defined only by likelihoods, not certainties. The narrative visualizes these phenomena with cinematic flair, electrons shimmering in uncertain paths, photons leaping like sparks across voids, and probability waves undulating in complex patterns, evoking both awe and apprehension. Viewers experience the strange elegance of a universe where the rules are both mathematically precise and fundamentally unpredictable. The human dimension of this revolution is central to the narrative. Scientists such as Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and Erwin Schrödinger are portrayed not as abstract figures but as impassioned explorers navigating the limits of comprehension. Laboratories are alive with motion, sparks from experimental apparatus, the meticulous adjustments of instruments, and the focused intensity of physicists poring over results. Letters and debates ripple across Europe, carrying arguments that blend logic, intuition, and philosophy. Cinematic reconstructions emphasize the energy and emotion of these interactions. Rapid camera movements follow pens across paper, soft lighting reveals expressions of both excitement and doubt, and soundscapes accentuate the tension of discovery. Einstein's role in this revolution is both complex and compelling. While he resisted certain philosophical interpretations of quantum mechanics, he contributed to its early foundations, particularly through his work on the photoelectric effect. The audience is invited to explore this duality, a mind at once skeptical and visionary, cautious yet unwilling to ignore empirical truth. Visual storytelling captures the nuance of this position. Einstein in quiet contemplation, equations sprawled before him, shadows of doubt mingling with the light of insight. The contrast between his internal reflection and the bustling energy of the wider scientific community reinforces the tension between personal conviction and collective progress. The narrative also explores the broader consequences of the quantum revolution. The deterministic clockwork universe of classical physics is replaced by a cosmos governed by probabilities, uncertainty, and wave-particle duality. The audience experiences the intellectual and emotional impact of this transformation through cinematic sequences, swirling visualizations of quantum fields, particles emerging and vanishing, and atoms behaving in ways that defy intuitive understanding. These images convey both the mystery and the exhilarating potential of a world that operates according to principles far removed from human expectation. Philosophical and existential questions emerge alongside empirical discoveries. If reality at its core is probabilistic, what does that mean for causality, free will, and the predictability of the cosmos? Scientists wrestle not only with experiments but with the implications for human understanding itself. The section portrays these dilemmas through intimate vignettes. Physicists engaged in animated discussion, Einstein walking through shadowed streets lost in thought, and young researchers marveling at results that challenge every preconception. Cinematic framing heightens emotional engagement. Light and shadow underscore uncertainty, camera angles shift to reflect disorientation and discovery, and pacing alternates between rapid experimental sequences and reflective contemplation. The revolutionary nature of the theory is also emphasized through its cultural and intellectual resonance. Quantum mechanics begins to influence not only science but philosophy, art, and the broader imagination. The narrative captures this by juxtaposing experimental visuals with evocative imagery, fragmented patterns, shifting perspectives, and abstract representations of uncertainty that parallel both scientific concepts and human emotion. The audience is invited to appreciate the profound ripple effects of the quantum revolution, feeling the exhilaration, fear, and awe that accompanied the transformation of understanding. As this section unfolds, the tension between clarity and mystery remains central. Experiments confirm theoretical predictions, yet the deeper nature of reality remains elusive. The narrative continually alternates between the concrete and the abstract, certainty and paradox, mirroring the oscillations inherent in quantum theory itself. Cinematic techniques, slow-motion sequences, overlapping visual layers, and immersive sound design enhance this dynamic, allowing viewers to engage both intellectually and emotionally with the revolution taking place. By the conclusion of this section, viewers grasp the magnitude of the quantum revolution and its transformative impact on physics. The universe is no longer a predictable clockwork machine but a dynamic, probabilistic, and astonishingly complex reality. Einstein's resistance, the passionate debates, and the experimental triumphs coalesce into a portrait of an era defined by both uncertainty and discovery. The audience is left with awe, curiosity, and anticipation, fully prepared to journey further into the philosophical, personal, and cosmic consequences of a universe revealed to be far stranger than anyone had ever imagined. Cinematic imagery lingers. Electrons dancing in probabilistic clouds, photons scattering in bursts of light, and the thoughtful, contemplative figure of Einstein poised at the edge of comprehension, inviting viewers to witness the continuing struggle to understand a world in perpetual transformation. The more Einstein delved into the quantum revolution, the more he realized that the theory's elegance came with profound and unsettling implications. Unlike the predictable universe of Newtonian physics, the quantum realm seemed governed by rules that defied intuition and undermined classical notions of determinism. Particles could exist in multiple states at once. Events were probabilistic rather than certain, and the mere act of observation appeared to influence reality itself. This section immerses the audience in the emotional and intellectual upheaval that accompanied the rise of quantum mechanics, capturing both the awe-inspiring beauty of the theory and the existential unease it provoked. Einstein's discomfort was not rooted in ignorance but in a profound philosophical commitment. He sought universality, laws that applied consistently and without exception, a cosmos that could be understood through reason and logic. Quantum theory, by contrast, suggested that at the most fundamental level, uncertainty was irreducible. The narrative portrays Einstein in moments of deep contemplation, pacing dimly lit rooms, scribbling equations with chalk-stained hands, and gazing out windows as sunlight fractured into unpredictable patterns. These cinematic visuals convey the tension between the clarity he sought and the probabilistic chaos that seemed to define reality. Central to this section is Einstein's engagement with thought experiments, intellectual tools he used to probe the limits of the theory. The most famous, the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen (EPR) paradox, was designed to expose what he saw as incompleteness in quantum mechanics. By imagining entangled particles separated across vast distances yet instantaneously correlated, he challenged the notion that the theory could fully describe reality. Cinematic reenactments bring these abstract ideas to life. Particles shimmering across cosmic vistas, invisible threads connecting distant points, and the mind's eye projecting possibilities and paradoxes in ways that feel both tangible and surreal. The audience experiences the thrill and tension of intellectual exploration, walking alongside Einstein as he grapples with the boundaries of understanding. The section also highlights the contrast between Einstein's skepticism and the excitement of his contemporaries. Niels Bohr and other pioneers embraced the counterintuitive aspects of quantum mechanics, reveling in a universe liberated from deterministic constraints. Laboratories buzzed with experimentation, apparatuses flickered with sparks of discovery, and conferences hummed with animated debate. Cinematic storytelling emphasizes these contrasts. Rapid cuts between the bustling energy of collaborative exploration and the quiet, solitary intensity of Einstein's reflective thought. The tension between collective enthusiasm and individual caution amplifies both the intellectual and emotional stakes, drawing viewers deeply into the drama of scientific revolution. Einstein's resistance was as much philosophical as it was scientific. He struggled with the notion that reality might operate on principles of chance, that causality might be probabilistic rather than absolute. Cinematic techniques underscore this inner conflict. Shadows stretching across walls lined with blackboards, slow pans over scattered manuscripts, and lingering close-ups on expressive eyes that reflect both awe and anxiety. The audience is invited to empathize with his struggle, understanding that the challenge was not merely technical but existential, confronting a universe that appeared stranger than any previous imagination could encompass. The narrative also explores the profound experimental confirmations that tested and reshaped Einstein's engagement with quantum theory. Experiments in photoelectric effects, electron diffraction, and atomic behavior repeatedly confirmed the predictions of quantum mechanics. These results, while validating the mathematical framework, deepened the philosophical tension, compelling Einstein and others to confront the counterintuitive reality the data revealed. Cinematic visualizations render these experiments tangible. Electrons scattering like starlight, photons pulsing in discrete bursts, and probability waves undulating in shimmering patterns, creating an immersive experience that conveys both beauty and mystery. Throughout the section, contrast framing maintains emotional engagement. The comfort of classical predictability is juxtaposed with the radical unpredictability of quantum reality. Scenes of bustling scientific activity alternate with quiet moments of reflection, clarity alternates with paradox, and the familiar alternates with the astonishingly strange. This dynamic reinforces the central tension of Einstein's struggle, a desire for understanding in the face of a universe that continually defies intuition. Cinematic pacing, sound design, and visual metaphors immerse the audience in this intellectual and emotional journey, making abstract concepts both comprehensible and viscerally engaging. By the conclusion of this section, viewers appreciate the magnitude of the challenge Einstein faced. He stands at the crossroads of discovery and doubt, caught between admiration for the predictive power of quantum mechanics and unease at its philosophical implications. The universe, once imagined as orderly and predictable, now appears probabilistic, interconnected, and profoundly mysterious. Cinematic imagery lingers on this tension, particles flickering between states, entangled threads stretching across the cosmos, and Einstein himself poised in reflective contemplation. The audience is left with a sense of awe, intellectual suspense, and anticipation, ready to follow the unfolding story of a mind confronting the extraordinary and the unsettling truths of the quantum world. As the 1920s progressed, the chasm between classical intuition and the emerging quantum reality widened, and Albert Einstein found himself at the center of a philosophical storm. The more experimental evidence confirmed the strange predictions of quantum mechanics, the more acute his unease became. He had devoted his life to uncovering universal truths, laws that were elegant, predictable, and comprehensible, yet quantum theory suggested that at the deepest level reality was probabilistic, uncertain, and, in some ways, fundamentally unknowable. This section immerses the audience in Einstein's intellectual and emotional confrontation with a universe that defied certainty, exploring the tension between admiration for mathematical beauty and the discomfort of philosophical disruption. Einstein's approach to these revolutionary ideas was meticulous and imaginative. He engaged deeply with the thought experiments and paradoxes that challenged quantum mechanics, exploring their consequences not only mathematically but philosophically. The Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, for instance, revealed a universe in which entangled particles remained mysteriously connected across vast distances, defying classical notions of locality. Cinematic sequences visualized these abstractions: particles shimmering across cosmic voids, invisible threads of influence connecting distant points, and waves of probability undulating with both elegance and unpredictability. These visuals translate abstract physics into emotional, cinematic experience, allowing the audience to feel the profound implications of a universe that operates according to unfamiliar rules. The narrative emphasizes the human dimension of this struggle. Einstein's resistance was not obstinacy but a principled stance rooted in a desire for clarity, consistency, and comprehension. Letters and debates with contemporaries like Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg reveal a dynamic interplay of ideas, respect, and tension. Cinematic recreations of these encounters emphasize gestures, expressions, and the charged atmosphere of intellectual confrontation. Furrowed brows over chalkboards, rapid exchanges of equations, hands hovering over paper as ideas collide, and reflective pauses that capture the weight of discovery. The audience is drawn into these intimate and high-stakes moments, experiencing both the intellectual rigor and emotional intensity of scientific debate. Einstein's internal struggle is mirrored in the broader cultural and philosophical implications of quantum mechanics. The deterministic universe of classical physics had offered comfort and predictability. Now, randomness and probability were fundamental. Cinematic storytelling amplifies this tension through visual contrasts. Orderly, symmetrical structures of classical mechanics juxtaposed with chaotic, shimmering patterns representing quantum uncertainty. The audience experiences the emotional resonance of this transformation: awe at the elegance of mathematical predictions, fear of the philosophical consequences, and curiosity about the nature of reality itself. The section also explores Einstein's persistent engagement with the mathematical underpinnings of quantum theory. He recognized the theory's predictive power and the elegance of its formalism, yet remained troubled by its philosophical ramifications. Cinematic techniques, slow pans across blackboards filled with symbols, close-ups of hands tracing equations, and the interplay of light and shadow across reflective surfaces, emphasize both the beauty and the tension inherent in the pursuit of knowledge. Through these visuals, viewers appreciate the duality of Einstein's experience: intellectual fascination tempered by existential concern. Experimental validation plays a crucial role in this narrative. As laboratories across Europe confirmed quantum predictions, from atomic spectra to the behavior of electrons and photons, Einstein could not ignore the empirical evidence. Yet each confirmation deepened his philosophical unease. The cinematic representation of these experiments brings them to life: electrons scattering in clouds, photons bursting in discrete packets, and probability waves shimmering across space. Soundscapes heighten the tension, blending the mechanical hum of instruments with ethereal tones that evoke the strangeness and beauty of the quantum world. The tension between Einstein's resistance and the enthusiasm of his peers drives the emotional arc of this section. While he challenged aspects of quantum mechanics, the theory advanced rapidly, embraced by the scientific community for its predictive success. Cinematic contrasts highlight this dynamic: the bustling energy of collaborative research and conference debates juxtaposed with the solitary figure of Einstein in reflection. The audience feels the drama of intellectual progress, witnessing the interplay of personal conviction, philosophical rigor, and empirical evidence that defines the story of discovery. Throughout this section, The narrative maintains a rhythm of contrast framing, balancing clarity with paradox, determinism with uncertainty, and admiration with apprehension. Cinematic storytelling immerses viewers in both the abstract complexity of quantum theory and the emotional intensity of Einstein's engagement. Visual metaphors, threads connecting entangled particles, particles flickering between states, and light bending through unexpected paths, underscore the philosophical stakes and invite the audience to grapple with the profound implications of a universe governed by uncertainty. By the end of this section, viewers fully grasp the intellectual and emotional stakes Einstein faced. He embodies the tension between comprehension and wonder, certainty and ambiguity, human intuition and the enigmatic laws of the cosmos. The audience is left with a sense of awe, curiosity, and anticipation, prepared to follow the next stages of his confrontation with the theory that both illuminated and frightened him. Cinematic imagery lingers, particles suspended in probabilistic motion, equations unfurling like constellations, and Einstein, contemplative and resolute, poised at the threshold of understanding a universe more mysterious than any mind had previously encountered. As the 1930s dawned, the tension surrounding quantum mechanics intensified, and Albert Einstein found himself increasingly isolated in his philosophical stance. The universe, once imagined as a vast, predictable clockwork, now appeared probabilistic and profoundly mysterious. For Einstein, the elegance of mathematics alone could not compensate for a reality in which chance seemed fundamental and determinism was questioned at its core. This section immerses the audience in the evolving struggle between certainty and uncertainty, exploring the intellectual, emotional, and philosophical dimensions of Einstein's engagement with a world that defied classical understanding. Einstein's concerns were deeply rooted in his vision of what science should accomplish: a coherent, universal framework capable of explaining all natural phenomena. Quantum mechanics, while empirically successful, suggested limits to knowledge itself. Particles behaved unpredictably, entanglement implied instantaneous correlations across vast distances, and the act of observation appeared inseparable from the phenomena being observed. Cinematic sequences visualize these concepts with striking imagery: electrons drifting in probabilistic clouds, photons scattering unpredictably, and invisible threads of entanglement linking distant points, creating a sense of both wonder and disquiet. The audience is drawn into the conceptual and emotional weight of these revelations, experiencing the tension that defined Einstein's intellectual journey. Central to this section is Einstein's relentless pursuit of clarity through thought experiments and theoretical exploration. The EPR paradox remains a focal point, illustrating his insistence that a complete physical theory must provide a deterministic account of reality. Cinematic portrayals of these experiments bring abstract principles to life: entangled particles shimmering across cosmic voids, invisible connections stretching across unimaginable distances, and waves of probability oscillating with elegance and unpredictability. Viewers are invited to step into the mind of Einstein, witnessing the intellectual daring required to confront a universe that defies intuitive understanding. The section also delves into Einstein's interactions with his contemporaries, highlighting the emotional and philosophical dimensions of scientific discourse. Correspondence and debates with Niels Bohr, Max Born, and Werner Heisenberg reveal a complex interplay of respect, challenge, and disagreement. Cinematic reconstructions convey the intensity of these exchanges: furrowed brows over chalkboards, animated gestures emphasizing points of contention, and quiet moments of reflection that underscore the stakes of grappling with reality's most fundamental mysteries. The contrast between collective excitement and individual skepticism heightens the drama, immersing viewers in the human side of scientific revolution. Experimental confirmation of quantum predictions continue to accumulate, adding urgency and credibility to the theory while simultaneously amplifying Einstein's unease. Observations of atomic spectra, electron behavior, and photon interactions validated mathematical models yet seemed to contradict the philosophical principles he cherished. Cinematic visualization makes these phenomena tangible: electrons darting unpredictably, photons leaping in discrete bursts, and probability waves undulating through space, accompanied by soundscapes that blend mechanical precision with ethereal resonance. The audience experiences the tension of empirical certainty intersecting with philosophical discomfort, feeling the stakes of confronting a reality that challenges deeply held intuitions. Einstein's struggle is also contextualized within the broader intellectual landscape. While quantum mechanics advanced rapidly, embracing abstraction and probability, Einstein remained committed to a vision of an intelligible universe governed by consistent laws. Cinematic contrasts emphasize this divide: Orderly blackboards filled with precise equations juxtaposed with visualizations of chaotic quantum systems, laboratories buzzing with collaborative experimentation set against solitary contemplation, and the tension between empirical success and conceptual unease. These visual metaphors deepen audience engagement, conveying both the beauty and the existential challenge of the quantum revolution. Philosophical reflection permeates the section, highlighting the implications of a probabilistic universe for causality, free will, and the limits of human understanding. Einstein's concerns were not merely technical but deeply existential, questioning whether science could ever provide a fully coherent picture of reality. Cinematic storytelling amplifies these themes. Slow pans over reflective landscapes, light filtering through shadowed rooms, and close-ups of contemplative eyes convey the weight of confronting uncertainty at the highest level. The audience is invited to empathize with the human stakes of intellectual exploration, feeling both awe and apprehension. As the section progresses, contrast framing sustains emotional engagement. Determinism and probability, clarity and ambiguity, hope and doubt alternate, mirroring the oscillations inherent in the scientific and philosophical debates of the time. Cinematic techniques, layered visual effects, immersive soundscapes, and pacing that shifts between reflective pauses and rapid experimental sequences, allow viewers to experience the dynamic interplay of discovery, skepticism, and wonder. By emphasizing both the intellectual rigor and emotional intensity of Einstein's engagement, the narrative conveys the profound stakes of confronting a universe that resists simple comprehension. By the conclusion of this section, viewers understand the depth of Einstein's struggle and the radical transformation quantum mechanics imposed on the conception of reality. He stands at the intersection of empirical confirmation and philosophical unease, embodying the tension between comprehension and uncertainty, deterministic intuition and probabilistic revelation. Cinematic imagery lingers on shimmering particles, entangled threads spanning the cosmos, and Einstein in contemplative solitude, inviting the audience to share in the awe, tension, and intellectual exhilaration of a universe far stranger and more beautiful than previously imagined. The 1930s marked a period of relentless confrontation between Einstein's intuition and the unfolding mysteries of quantum mechanics. With every experimental confirmation, the probabilistic nature of reality became more undeniable, challenging the deterministic framework that had guided centuries of scientific thought. Einstein, a man driven by the pursuit of universal laws, found himself in a philosophical and emotional struggle unlike any before. This section immerses the audience in the escalating tension between the elegance of quantum mathematics and the existential unease it provoked, exploring the profound implications for understanding reality itself. Central to Einstein's concern was the erosion of determinism. Classical physics had presented a universe in which every effect could be traced to a cause, where outcomes could be predicted with absolute certainty given sufficient information. Quantum mechanics, however, suggested a universe where probabilities reigned, where particles could exist in multiple states simultaneously, and where the act of measurement played an active role in shaping outcomes. Cinematically, these ideas are brought to life through visual metaphors: particles flickering between possibilities, probability clouds undulating like ethereal mist, and photons scattering unpredictably, illuminating the tension between order and chaos. The audience feels the emotional weight of a cosmos that defies certainty, a reality that is both wondrous and unsettling. Einstein's engagement with thought experiments illustrates the depth of his intellectual struggle. The famous EPR paradox, which he developed with Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen, was an attempt to demonstrate the incompleteness of quantum mechanics. By imagining entangled particles that affected each other instantaneously across vast distances, Einstein challenged the theory's claim to fully describe physical reality. Cinematic sequences translate these abstract principles into tangible experience. Shimmering particles connected by invisible threads stretching across cosmic voids, waves of probability oscillating with a rhythm both precise and unpredictable, and the human figure of Einstein contemplating the profound consequences. Through these visualizations, the audience experiences the thrill and tension of pushing the boundaries of comprehension. The section also delves into Einstein's intellectual interactions with contemporaries. Exchanges with Niels Bohr, Max Born, and Werner Heisenberg exemplify the dynamic interplay between philosophical conviction and scientific evidence. These debates were more than technical disputes, they were confrontations over the very nature of reality. Cinematic reconstructions bring these moments to life: the flicker of candlelight reflecting on chalkboards, animated gestures emphasizing critical points, rapid-fire exchanges of letters across continents, and contemplative pauses that underscore the stakes of understanding. The audience is drawn into the drama, feeling both the intellectual rigor and emotional intensity of these interactions. Experimental validation heightened both the excitement and the tension. Every confirmation of quantum predictions, from atomic spectra to electron diffraction, underscored the accuracy of the mathematical framework while deepening Einstein's philosophical unease. Cinematic sequences convey the wonder and strangeness of these results. Electrons darting unpredictably, photons appearing in discrete bursts of energy, and probability waves shimmering across space. Sound design emphasizes the emotional resonance, blending mechanical hums with ethereal tones that evoke the mystery of a universe operating according to unfamiliar principles. The audience is immersed in a world simultaneously elegant and profoundly disquieting. Einstein's resistance was as much personal as it was scientific. He grappled with the notion that reality might be inherently probabilistic, that causality could be contingent, and that human intuition might never fully grasp the underlying order of the cosmos. Cinematic storytelling emphasizes these inner struggles. Solitary walks along shadowed streets, hands hovering over complex calculations, eyes reflecting awe and concern, and moments of reflection where the weight of uncertainty is palpable. These vignettes humanize the intellectual struggle, allowing viewers to empathize with the emotional stakes of confronting a universe that refuses to yield easily to comprehension. The philosophical implications of quantum mechanics reverberated beyond physics, influencing thought in philosophy, mathematics, and even literature. Einstein's insistence on determinism contrasted sharply with the growing acceptance of uncertainty, provoking questions about causality, knowledge, and the limits of human understanding. Cinematic visualizations enhanced these ideas. Fractal patterns illustrating complex possibilities, interwoven threads representing entanglement, and visual metaphors for the probabilistic interplay of cause and effect. The audience is invited to contemplate not only scientific concepts but their broader implications for understanding reality and the human place within it. Throughout the section, contrast framing maintains engagement and emotional tension. Deterministic classical physics is juxtaposed with probabilistic quantum mechanics, moments of clarity with paradox, and intellectual exhilaration with existential unease. Cinematic techniques, layered visual effects, immersive soundscapes, and pacing that alternates between reflective stillness and rapid experimental sequences, allow viewers to experience the oscillation between comprehension and bewilderment, mirroring the intellectual dynamics of Einstein's struggle. By the conclusion of this section, the audience is fully immersed in the philosophical, emotional, and scientific stakes of Einstein's confrontation with quantum mechanics. He embodies the tension between admiration for mathematical elegance and resistance to its counterintuitive implications. Cinematic imagery lingers on particles suspended in probabilistic clouds, threads of entanglement stretching across vast distances, and Einstein in contemplative solitude, leaving viewers with a sense of awe, intellectual tension, and anticipation for the unfolding consequences of this revolutionary theory. The world Einstein confronted in the 1930s was no longer merely a scientific landscape but a stage on which philosophical, emotional, and human dimensions converged. The probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, increasingly confirmed through experimentation, challenged not only scientific orthodoxy but also the deeply held beliefs of one of history's greatest minds. This section immerses the audience in the next phase of the narrative, exploring the unfolding tension between human intuition, mathematical elegance, and the revolutionary consequences of a universe that defies classical comprehension. As quantum mechanics matured, its counterintuitive principles became increasingly undeniable. Electrons existed not as discrete particles traveling predictable paths but as probability clouds, photons oscillated between wave and particle behavior, and entanglement implied instantaneous correlations across vast distances. Cinematic storytelling brings these abstract concepts to life, shimmering particles moving unpredictably, waves of probability cascading like ethereal ribbons, and entangled threads stretching across cosmic expanses. The audience experiences both the wonder and the disquiet of a universe operating under laws that resist ordinary perception. Einstein's ongoing resistance, however, remained deeply principled. He sought a coherent, deterministic description of reality, a framework in which cause and effect were absolute and uncertainty was a sign of incomplete understanding rather than a fundamental feature of nature. The narrative emphasizes his intellectual and emotional commitment through cinematic visualization, chalk-stained hands tracing intricate equations, shadows stretching across dimly lit studies, and lingering close-ups of eyes reflecting awe, concern, and unyielding curiosity. These moments humanize the struggle, allowing viewers to empathize with the weight of engaging with a universe that defies intuitive comprehension. The section also explores Einstein's creative use of thought experiments. Beyond the EPR paradox, he devised scenarios intended to expose contradictions, inconsistencies, or incompleteness within quantum mechanics. These exercises highlight his methodological rigor, imaginative prowess, and philosophical depth. Cinematically, these experiments are rendered as dynamic visual sequences, particles splitting and recombining, invisible connections shimmering across space, and probability waves folding and unfolding in patterns that mirror the intellectual challenges Einstein sought to illuminate. The audience is invited to witness both the creativity and the intensity required to probe the limits of understanding. Interaction with peers remained a defining feature of this era. Letters, debates, and conferences captured the tension between collective acceptance of quantum principles and Einstein's insistence on determinism. Cinematic reconstructions emphasized the human drama, rapid exchanges of equations and ideas, the gestures and expressions that communicate conviction and doubt, and reflective pauses where the weight of uncertainty is palpable. The audience experiences the interplay between social dynamics, intellectual rigor, and philosophical tension, gaining insight into the emotional landscape of scientific revolution. Experimental verification continued to reinforce the predictive power of quantum mechanics while simultaneously heightening Einstein's unease. Observations of atomic behavior, spectral lines, and particle interactions validated the mathematical formalism, yet the philosophical implications remained troubling. Cinematic sequences depict these experiments with both realism and abstraction. Electrons darting unpredictably, photons appearing as bursts of discrete energy, and probability waves undulating like living patterns. Soundscapes and pacing enhanced the sense of both precision and mystery, immersing the audience in the duality of empirical certainty and conceptual disquiet. Philosophical reflection permeates the narrative. The probabilistic universe of quantum mechanics raised profound questions about causality, reality, and the limits of human knowledge. Einstein's insistence on determinism and completeness of theory highlighted the tension between predictive accuracy and conceptual coherence. Cinematic metaphors, intersecting threads representing entanglement, particles shimmering between possible states, and light bending through unexpected paths, visualize abstract philosophical ideas in emotionally resonant ways. The audience is invited to engage not only with scientific content but with the existential stakes it raises. Throughout the section, contrast framing maintains engagement. Classical determinism versus quantum probability, intellectual exhilaration versus philosophical unease, collective consensus versus individual skepticism. Cinematic techniques, including immersive sound design, dynamic pacing, and layered visual effects, allow viewers to inhabit both the conceptual and emotional dimensions of the narrative. The oscillation between clarity and ambiguity mirrors Einstein's own experience and enhances the tension and drama of the story. By the end of this section, the audience fully grasps the magnitude of the challenges Einstein faced and the revolutionary implications of quantum mechanics. He stands at the crossroads of empirical confirmation and philosophical discomfort, embodying the tension between comprehension and uncertainty, intuition and abstraction. Cinematic imagery lingers on electrons suspended in probabilistic clouds, entangled threads spanning the cosmos, and Einstein in reflective solitude, inviting viewers to contemplate the awe-inspiring and unsettling nature of a universe more mysterious than previously imagined. The unsettling revelations of quantum mechanics continue to ripple through the scientific community, challenging centuries of established thought and fundamentally altering the way humanity understood the universe. By the time Einstein had fully grappled with the implications, it became clear that the theory he found so beautiful and yet so disturbing was not merely an abstract set of equations, but a window into the deepest and most enigmatic aspects of reality. This section immerses the audience in the expanding influence of quantum theory, highlighting both the scientific breakthroughs and the profound emotional and philosophical tension that accompanied them. At the core of this revolution was the recognition that classical intuitions about reality no longer applied at the microscopic level. Particles did not follow continuous, predictable paths, but existed in probabilistic states. The act of observation influenced outcomes in ways that seemed to violate common sense, suggesting that the universe was far stranger and more interconnected than anyone had imagined. Cinematically, this is illustrated through dynamic visualizations. Electrons shimmering in fluctuating clouds of possibility, photons splitting and converging like luminous threads, and waves of probability cascading across a vast, dark cosmic landscape. These images evoke both wonder and unease, allowing the audience to viscerally experience the disorienting beauty of quantum phenomena. Einstein's engagement with these concepts was both rigorous and deeply personal. He approached each paradox, each counterintuitive result, with a blend of mathematical precision and philosophical contemplation. His thought experiments, particularly the EPR paradox, were designed to probe the limits of the theory and reveal potential inconsistencies. Cinematic sequences portray these experiments as mental landscapes, entangled particles shimmering across incomprehensible distances, invisible threads connecting them, and waves of probability shifting in response to hypothetical observations. The audience is drawn into the intellectual drama, feeling the tension of a mind striving to reconcile elegance with incomprehensibility. The narrative also explores the broader scientific and social context in which these ideas developed. Laboratories across Europe buzzed with activity, filled with researchers conducting experiments that tested the predictions of quantum mechanics. The story emphasizes the contrast between this collective excitement and Einstein's solitary reflection, highlighting the human dimension of scientific discovery. Cinematic reconstructions show glowing apparatuses, particles scattering unpredictably, and physicists engaged in animated discussions, juxtaposed with close-ups of Einstein in contemplative isolation. This contrast frames the tension between collaborative progress and individual philosophical struggle. Experimental confirmation of quantum predictions intensified both the credibility of the theory and Einstein's unease. Observations of atomic spectra, electron behavior, and the photoelectric effect confirmed the counterintuitive principles that he found troubling. Cinematic visualizations render these phenomena tangible. Electrons flickering between states, photons appearing in discrete bursts, and probability waves undulating like rippling water. Sound design enhances the emotional resonance, blending mechanical hums of instruments with ethereal tones that evoke the strange and beautiful nature of the quantum world. The audience experiences both the thrill of discovery and the discomfort of confronting a reality that defies intuition. Einstein's resistance was grounded in deep philosophical conviction. He sought a universe governed by clear, deterministic laws, where reality could be fully described and predicted. Quantum mechanics, however, suggested that uncertainty and probability were fundamental. Cinematic storytelling emphasizes his internal struggle. Slow-motion sequences of contemplative walks, hands tracing complex equations, shadows stretching across dimly lit rooms, and eyes reflecting both awe and anxiety. The audience is invited to empathize with the tension of confronting a cosmos that refuses to yield easily to comprehension, understanding the emotional stakes of intellectual engagement at the highest level. The philosophical ramifications of quantum mechanics extended beyond physics, influencing thought in mathematics, philosophy, and even literature. Einstein's insistence on determinism highlighted the tension between human intuition and the probabilistic nature of reality. Cinematic metaphors bring these ideas to life. Interwoven threads representing entanglement, particles flickering between possibilities, and waves of probability folding and unfolding like living patterns. Viewers are encouraged to reflect not only on scientific principles but also on their implications for understanding causality, reality, and the limits of human knowledge. Throughout this section, contrast framing maintains engagement and emotional intensity. Deterministic classical physics is juxtaposed with probabilistic quantum mechanics. Intellectual exhilaration alternates with philosophical unease, and collective enthusiasm contrasts with individual skepticism. Cinematic techniques, layered visual effects, immersive soundscapes, and alternating pacing between reflective stillness and rapid experimental sequences allow the audience to inhabit both the conceptual and emotional dimensions of the narrative. The oscillation between clarity and ambiguity mirrors the experience of Einstein and his contemporaries, deepening engagement and emphasizing the stakes of discovery. The section also highlights the human resilience required to confront a universe that defies expectation. Despite his unease, Einstein continued to explore the implications of quantum mechanics, engaging in debates, thought experiments, and correspondence that would shape the discourse for decades. Cinematic storytelling emphasizes the drama of intellectual perseverance. Solitary contemplation juxtaposed with the lively energy of collaborative exploration, moments of tension interspersed with flashes of insight, and the relentless pursuit of understanding in the face of uncertainty. The audience experiences the emotional and philosophical weight of engaging with a reality that challenges deeply held assumptions. By the conclusion of this section, viewers are fully immersed in the profound tension that defined Einstein's relationship with quantum mechanics. They understand that this was not merely a scientific debate but a confrontation with the nature of reality itself, a struggle that combined intellectual rigor, philosophical reflection, and human emotion. Cinematic imagery lingers on particles suspended in probabilistic motion, entangled threads spanning cosmic distances, and Einstein poised in reflective solitude, capturing the awe, tension, and wonder of a universe that is at once beautiful, strange, and fundamentally uncertain. The audience is left with a heightened appreciation for both the intellectual courage required to engage with these ideas and the extraordinary nature of the cosmos they reveal. By the dawn of the 1940s, Albert Einstein's disquiet toward quantum mechanics had evolved into something deeper than intellectual disagreement. It became a personal philosophical crisis. He had helped build the foundations of modern physics, yet now stood apart from its new direction. The very theory that had grown from his own discoveries had turned into something alien to his understanding of nature. Quantum mechanics was no longer a frontier to be explored, it was a world he could not fully accept. This section delves into Einstein's solitude, his unwavering pursuit of determinism, and the mounting realization that the universe may not align with the reassuring clarity he long sought. It explores not only the scientific tension but also the emotional and spiritual reckoning of a man who spent his life searching for harmony in a cosmos that now appeared fundamentally uncertain. Cinematic storytelling opens with a quiet image. Einstein at Princeton, his silhouette framed against the fading afternoon light, chalk dust lingering in the air like cosmic particles. His desk is crowded with letters, equations, and notes, a lifetime of questions condensed into fragile paper. As his hand moves across the page, the narration reflects his inner voice, filled with wonder yet heavy with doubt. God does not play dice with the universe, he had said, and yet, as experiment after experiment confirmed the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, it seemed as though the dice were indeed being thrown, endlessly, everywhere. The audience senses the weight of this dissonance, between faith in cosmic order and the mounting evidence of randomness woven into reality's fabric. The narrative transitions between Einstein's philosophical reflections and the ongoing experimental triumphs of quantum mechanics. Laboratories across Europe and America had entered a new age of precision. Quantum theory was no longer abstract. It powered technologies that changed the world. The understanding of atomic behavior led to advances in semiconductors, spectroscopy, and nuclear physics. Yet, for Einstein, this success did not resolve the deeper question. Was the universe truly indeterminate, or had science simply not yet uncovered the deeper law beneath the surface? Cinematically, these contrasting visions unfold in alternating sequences, bright laboratories buzzing with discovery, juxtaposed with the quiet solitude of Einstein's office, where light and shadow mirror the philosophical divide. Einstein's pursuit of a unified field theory became both his refuge and his rebellion. He sought equations that would unite gravity and electromagnetism under a single framework, a return to simplicity, to harmony, to the elegant determinism he believed must govern the cosmos. Each morning he walked through Princeton's campus, lost in thought, murmuring mathematical patterns to himself as if speaking directly to the universe. Cinematic visuals depict these walks as meditative sequences, leaves falling like particles, ripples and puddles echoing waves of probability, the soft hum of the wind suggesting the whisper of unseen dimensions. His work, though increasingly isolated, carried a quiet grandeur, the stubborn hope that beneath the chaos, order still existed. Meanwhile, the rest of physics was moving in a different direction. Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and the new generation of physicists embraced the probabilistic worldview with unshakable confidence. For them, uncertainty was not a flaw but a fundamental truth. They saw beauty in the indeterminacy of nature, in the dance of probabilities that gave rise to measurable outcomes. Einstein, however, could not accept this philosophical surrender. For him, science without causality was incomplete. Cinematic reconstructions of debates and correspondence reveal this clash in tone and temperament. Einstein's calm, deliberate reasoning against Bohr's passionate insistence that observation defines reality. These exchanges become emotional duets, two geniuses speaking different languages about the same mystery. As the narrative deepens, the section explores the human cost of intellectual isolation. Despite worldwide fame, Einstein found himself intellectually alone. His colleagues respected him but quietly moved on, their focus on applications and quantum success stories rather than philosophical purity. Cinematic imagery captures this solitude, Einstein walking through snow-covered fields, his breath visible in the cold air, or sitting by candlelight surrounded by stacks of papers, the soft crackle of fire the only sound. The camera lingers on his expression, not defeat but contemplation, the kind that carries both sadness and awe. The audience senses that this is no longer a debate about science but an existential reflection on the nature of truth itself. Quantum entanglement, which Einstein once used as a weapon of critique, now became one of the most mystifying pillars of modern physics. Experiments revealed correlations between distant particles that seemed to defy the speed of light, a direct challenge to the relativistic universe he had helped define. Cinematic visualization makes this concept palpable. Two particles glowing softly, separated by cosmic darkness yet pulsing in harmony, their flickering lights echoing each other instantaneously. It's a hauntingly beautiful image, one that both honors and defies Einstein's legacy. The narration captures his internal dialogue. Perhaps the world is not as separate as we once thought. The audience feels the tension between rejection and reluctant wonder. Einstein's late writings reveal glimpses of philosophical reconciliation. Though he never accepted the probabilistic interpretation, he began to sense a broader harmony in the mystery itself, a recognition that human understanding might always be partial, that the universe's beauty lies in its inexhaustibility. Cinematic storytelling reflects this transformation with tonal shifts, warm hues replacing cold tones, the pacing slowing into meditative rhythm, soundscapes blending natural and mechanical motifs. The visual language suggests peace emerging from dissonance, not as resolution but as acceptance of complexity. Philosophers, scientists, and historians would later view Einstein's resistance not as stubbornness but as a profound act of intellectual courage. He stood as a reminder that even in an age of rapid discovery, the quest for meaning must accompany the pursuit of knowledge. His defiance preserved the philosophical depth of science, a belief that understanding nature requires not only equations but also introspection. The narrative expands outward, showing the influence of his ideas on later generations of thinkers who continued searching for a unified picture of reality. Cinematically, this legacy is portrayed through time-lapse montages of scientific progress. Particle accelerators, satellite imagery, and quantum computers glowing in darkened rooms, all tracing their lineage to the tension Einstein helped define. The section crescendos with an emotional meditation on uncertainty itself. As the narration swells, the imagery alternates between microscopic and cosmic scales, electrons orbiting in quantum clouds, galaxies spiraling through space, and the faint reflection of Einstein's eyes merging with the stars. His lifelong pursuit of order becomes inseparable from humanity's quest to understand existence. The music shifts to a contemplative minor key, underscoring both the melancholy and majesty of the unknown. The audience feels the weight of Einstein's realization that the universe may always remain partly beyond comprehension, yet still endlessly beautiful in its mystery. By the end, the viewer understands that Einstein's true legacy is not merely in his equations but in his questions. His resistance to quantum randomness was not a failure of understanding but a defense of coherence, of the belief that reality possesses meaning even when hidden from view. The final cinematic image lingers on his empty desk at Princeton, a faint beam of sunlight illuminating scattered papers, dust particles dancing like miniature galaxies in motion. The voiceover concludes softly, "Perhaps the universe does play dice, but it plays them on a board far greater than we can yet imagine." The screen fades to black, leaving the audience in reflective silence, suspended between knowledge and mystery. In the twilight of his life, Albert Einstein stood as both a monument and a mystery, a man whose equations had redefined the universe, yet who remained unsatisfied with the world his own discoveries had unveiled. The quiet halls of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton became his final observatory, not of stars and galaxies but of thought itself. Each morning, he walked the same path beneath towering trees, his mind a theater of questions that refused to rest. Though celebrated by the world, Einstein carried within him an unending disquiet, the feeling that the truth of existence still lay just beyond the horizon of human comprehension. This section immerses the audience in the final chapter of his intellectual odyssey, a poetic and cinematic meditation on knowledge, mystery, and the unrelenting human desire to find order in the chaos of the cosmos. Cinematic imagery begins with an intimate close-up, the texture of paper, the slow movement of a fountain pen, the soft rasp of chalk against the board. Einstein, older now, frail yet radiant with focus, is surrounded by the artifacts of a lifetime's labor. Letters from colleagues, equations half-finished, notes filled with symbols only he could understand. The camera pans across the room, capturing sunlight filtering through dusty air, illuminating the floating motes like miniature galaxies. The world outside rushes forward into the atomic age, but inside this small office, time seems to stand still. Einstein's voice, gentle, contemplative, echoes over the imagery. I am not interested in this or that phenomenon, in the spectrum of this or that element. I want to know his thoughts, the rest are details. The audience feels the ache of that statement. A man who has glimpsed the architecture of the universe, still yearning for the mind behind it. The world around him had changed irrevocably. Quantum mechanics, once a radical theory, had become the foundation of modern physics. It powered the understanding of atoms, radiation, and energy itself. And with the birth of nuclear power, Einstein witnessed the transformation of theory into terrifying reality. The same physics that once illuminated the unseen world now had the power to unmake it. Cinematically, these contrasts unfold with breathtaking imagery. Atomic explosions blooming like monstrous suns, followed by scenes of stillness. Einstein alone, gazing through his window, his reflection merging with the clouds beyond. The narration bridges emotion and intellect. The beauty of discovery intertwined with the moral weight of consequence. His correspondence in these years reveals both weariness and grace. Letters to friends and younger scientists carry tones of mentorship, humility, and persistent wonder. To some, he confessed his loneliness in a field that had moved beyond his philosophical reach. To others, he offered encouragement, to never stop asking questions, to never allow certainty to become complacency. Cinematic sequences illustrate these exchanges through tactile imagery, ink spreading across parchment, words dissolving into images of stars, the faint sound of typewriters echoing like distant machinery of thought. The effect is haunting and deeply human. The audience feels the weight of legacy carried through quiet acts of communication. Yet even as he aged, Einstein's intellectual fire never dimmed. His pursuit of a unified field theory continued, though the world saw little of it. He believed that beneath the apparent fragmentation of physics, quantum mechanics on one side, relativity on the other, there must exist a single, harmonious law. To him, the disunity of modern physics mirrored the disunity of human understanding. Cinematic storytelling renders this pursuit as a dreamlike visual sequence. Chalk lines transforming into constellations, symbols glowing faintly like celestial bodies, and mathematical patterns rippling across space like the fabric of the cosmos itself. The rhythm of the imagery slows, the sound design builds into a pulse. Measured, meditative, eternal. Viewers are drawn into the intimacy of the search, feeling both the majesty and melancholy of a quest without end. The section then widens its lens to explore the philosophical implications of Einstein's late reflections. In rejecting the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, he was not denying its success but defending a vision of truth that transcended measurement. He believed that nature's mysteries were not chaotic but concealed, awaiting deeper understanding. His insistence on determinism, even when unpopular, became symbolic of a broader human yearning, the hope that existence is not random, that beneath the shifting sands of chance lies a structure both meaningful and eternal. Cinematic imagery parallels this philosophy with breathtaking contrasts. Chaotic storms dissolving into still skies, collapsing waves reforming into symmetrical patterns, and Einstein's hand steady over trembling paper as he writes equations with near-reverent care. Einstein's solitude became a kind of sanctuary. While others celebrated the probabilistic universe, he meditated on its deeper implications. Nights found him walking beneath the stars, head tilted upward, his white hair glowing in the faint light. The narration becomes almost poetic. He once measured light, now he sought the silence behind it. The audience feels the intimacy of that image, an old man, small beneath an infinite sky, still questioning, still wondering. The music softens to a single cello note sustained over a field of ambient sound, evoking both the passage of time and the persistence of longing. As the section progresses, contrast framing deepens the emotional resonance. The rapid progress of physics, the discovery of new particles, the expansion of quantum theory, is juxtaposed with Einstein's quiet resistance. Young scientists speak in conferences filled with excitement and momentum, while Einstein in his study writes alone. Yet this contrast is not portrayed as tragedy, but as devotion. His refusal to accept incompleteness becomes a testament to integrity, to the idea that science must always be guided by philosophy, that understanding must remain connected to meaning. Cinematic pacing mirrors this emotional architecture. Alternating between dynamic montages of laboratories and slow, meditative shots of Einstein's reflection in darkened glass. By this stage of his life, Einstein had become more than a scientist. He had become a symbol of intellectual courage. His skepticism toward quantum randomness was often misunderstood as obstinacy, but within it lay a profound humility, a recognition of the limits of human knowledge. He never dismissed the success of quantum theory. He merely insisted that the story was not yet complete. Cinematic imagery translates this humility into metaphor, waves folding endlessly upon themselves, hands releasing sand that disappears into light, and the faint hum of strings vibrating into silence. The narration echoes softly, to doubt is not to deny. To question is to believe there is still something worth finding. As his health declined, Einstein's reflections took on a tone of acceptance. He began to speak less about equations and more about wonder, about the mystery that no science could entirely dispel. In a letter written shortly before his death, he wrote that the most beautiful experience one can have is the mysterious, that it is the source of all true art and science. Cinematic storytelling expands this line into a visual meditation. Galaxies swirling, oceans glimmering under moonlight, neural patterns firing within the human brain. The boundaries between mind, matter, and cosmos blur, and the audience feels the continuity between the scientist's mind and the universe he sought to understand. The final scenes are composed with deliberate stillness. Einstein sits by the window, papers scattered beside him, the faint glow of dawn illuminating the room. His breathing slows, his gaze drifts upward. Outside, the wind moves through the trees, carrying the soft murmur of the world he loved so deeply. The narration fades into a whisper. He spent his life seeking the thoughts of God. In the end, perhaps he found them in the silence. The camera pans outward, through the window, into the rising light of morning. The world continues, students crossing the campus, light scattering across the grass, a clock ticking gently. Einstein's absence is felt not as loss, but as transformation. His questions absorbed into the air, his wonder echoing across generations. The section concludes with a cinematic synthesis. Scenes of modern physicists in glowing laboratories, quantum computers humming softly, telescopes scanning the heavens. Einstein's words linger in voiceover. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. As the music swells, the imagery transitions from the intimate to the infinite, connecting Einstein's solitary reflections to humanity's ongoing journey of discovery. The final image lingers on a vast starfield, a faint ripple of light moving across it, as if space itself remembers the man who once asked it to reveal its secrets. The audience is left in quiet awe, aware that even though Einstein's search ended, the universe's invitation to wonder continues, eternal and unresolved. The scene opens with a vast expanse of stars, the Milky Way stretching like a river of fire across the black velvet of eternity. The narration begins in a voice both calm and resonant, as though whispering directly to the soul. Long after Einstein's death, his questions continue to echo through the halls of science, unanswered yet unforgotten. His theories had redefined the structure of space and time, but the theory that scared him, the one that fractured the unity of his vision, would go on to reshape reality itself. The camera glides slowly through the interstellar dark, past pulsars and galaxies, until it rests on Earth, a pale blue dot suspended in endless silence. Humanity, small yet audacious, continues to ask the same questions Einstein once wrestled with. What is reality? Is the universe fundamentally deterministic, or is uncertainty its most honest truth? As the film transitions from the cosmic to the human, we find ourselves inside the modern laboratory, walls bathed in sterile light, quantum computers humming with the rhythm of invisible calculations. Scientists stare into screens where equations flicker like constellations. A young researcher whispers, "Every time we measure, reality collapses." Her words hang in the air like a prayer to the invisible. The narration continues. Quantum mechanics, the theory Einstein resisted, has become the foundation of the modern world, the engine behind every transistor, every laser, every whisper of digital communication. It powers the civilization he helped create, even as it contradicts the philosophy he died defending. Here begins the contrast, the heart of this final section. On one side, the triumph of quantum theory, the precision, the predictions, the technological miracles. On the other, Einstein's ghost, his voice reminding us that something essential has been lost. Cinematically, this is rendered through parallel editing. The rapid movements of particles on computer screens are intercut with the stillness of Einstein's empty study. The camera lingers on his unused chalkboard, the remnants of equations fading like ancient cave paintings. The pacing slows, the music deepens. The narration asks, have we traded understanding for control? Have we built a world powered by uncertainty while silencing the questions that once gave us meaning? To explore this, the scene cuts to interviews, not literal ones but dramatized reflections. Contemporary physicists speak in fragments of philosophy. Reality doesn't exist until it's observed. Particles don't have properties, only probabilities. The universe is a wave of possibility collapsing into experience. Each voice overlaps, forming a kind of chorus. Then silence. The camera pans across their faces, minds brilliant, yet eyes filled with the same wonder and unease that haunted Einstein. The narration continues. What frightened Einstein was not ignorance, but the possibility that the universe itself might be unknowable, that reality might be built on chance rather than law, on probability rather than purpose. The visual tempo rises. Quantum entanglement experiments flash on screen, beams of light split and mirrored, detectors firing in perfect synchrony across vast distances. The narration builds tension. In these experiments, two particles, separated by light years, appear to communicate instantly. No signal, no medium, no passage of time. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, a phrase meant as skepticism. But today it stands as one of the most verified phenomena in all of physics. The camera zooms in on one photon, its reflection doubling infinitely in a cascade of mirrors. The image becomes metaphoric, a symbol of human consciousness, endlessly observing itself. Then comes a shift in tone, slow, contemplative, philosophical. The narration softens. Perhaps Einstein's discomfort was not with the theory itself, but with what it implied about us. If the universe is probabilistic, then so too is our existence. Every choice, every thought, every heartbeat is a collapse of infinite potential into one fleeting reality. The music transforms into a haunting piano motif, minimal and delicate. A montage unfolds, a child watching the stars, a scientist closing her eyes before an experiment, an old man sitting alone at dawn. The rhythm of these images creates a universal language of curiosity and solitude, the twin forces that drive all discovery. The narrative deepens its emotional resonance by contrasting faith and uncertainty. Einstein sought the eternal, the voiceover says. He believed in a universe governed by reason, where beauty and logic were reflections of a deeper order, the mind of God. But quantum mechanics spoke a different language, one of indeterminacy, of shifting truths, of mysteries that could not be pinned down. Visually, this contrast is rendered through symbols. Einstein's equations carved into paper dissolve into the flickering patterns of quantum waves. Cathedrals of stone fade into the circuitry of supercomputers. A hand reaching toward light turns into a particle scattering in every direction. The result is a sense of profound unity, chaos and order as two faces of the same divine mystery. Then the narrative widens once more, to the philosophical frontier that Einstein's fear helped define. Modern physicists like Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, and later Richard Feynman embraced the strangeness of the quantum world. For them, uncertainty was not a flaw but a feature, a sign that nature could never be fully domesticated by human thought. We must not ask what the electron is, Bohr once said, but only what it does. This shift marked a transformation not just in science but in philosophy itself. The film illustrates this transition with symbolic imagery, a blackboard wiped clean, replaced by a holographic projection of shifting light. The equations now dance like living entities, ungraspable yet beautiful. But amid this celebration of uncertainty, a quiet question remains, one that gives the section its haunting power. If reality is born from observation, the narrator asks, then who or what is the ultimate observer? The imagery turns metaphysical, the universe seen from above, galaxies spinning like neurons, light weaving through cosmic filaments resembling the architecture of the human brain. A parallel is drawn, consciousness and cosmos mirroring each other. The narration deepens. Perhaps the theory that scared Einstein was not merely about particles and waves. Perhaps it was about us, the realization that we are not separate from the universe, but participants in its unfolding. This revelation becomes the emotional core of the finale. The tone grows more reflective, almost spiritual. The narration invites the audience to imagine that every observation, every act of awareness, gives birth to a new universe. Each decision we make splits reality, like quantum branches of possibility stretching infinitely into the unknown. The visuals explode into a cosmic ballet, universes budding from each other like fractal blossoms, colors shifting through dimensions unseen. The narration whispers, Einstein dreamed of a universe that existed independent of the observer. But the quantum world whispers another story, that consciousness itself may be the final piece of the puzzle. The pacing slows again, allowing the audience to breathe. We return to the image of Einstein, not in the past but in the realm of imagination. He stands beneath the stars once more, gazing upward. His eyes reflect the light of galaxies. The narration becomes intimate, In the end, he may have been closer to the truth than he knew. For if the universe is both wave and particle, chance and law, chaos and order, then perhaps what he sought, the unity behind it all, was never missing. It was simply written in a language even he could not yet read. The final movement of this section becomes a crescendo of sound and meaning. The orchestra swells, blending electronic tones with classical strings. Images of the past and present collide. Einstein writing in his notebook, modern scientists manipulating qubits, telescopes capturing the birth of galaxies, neural networks mapping human thought. The narration ties them together with poetic gravity. From the chalkboards of 20th century Europe to the quantum processors of today, humanity continues the same ancient quest, to understand the pattern behind existence. The equations change, the tools evolve, but the longing remains the same. As the music begins to fade, the tone becomes quiet once more, reverent, reflective. The final minutes unfold like a prayer. Einstein once said that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. But what if comprehension itself is an illusion, a dance between what we know and what we can never know? The imagery turns abstract. Waves of light folding into darkness, stars dying and rebirthing, a single photon traveling through the void. Then, the voice returns one last time, tender and certain. The theory that scared Einstein did not destroy his dream. It completed it. It revealed that mystery and understanding are not opposites, but partners, two halves of the same infinite whole. The final montage bridges science, philosophy, and emotion. Children playing with prisms of light, researchers staring into particle detectors, monks meditating under the same stars Einstein once studied. The narration concludes, "We stand where he once stood, between certainty and wonder, between what is known and what is possible. And perhaps that is exactly where we are meant to be." The screen fades slowly to black. The last sound is the faint hum of the universe, a low vibration, eternal, like the echo of thought itself. Then a single line appears. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Albert Einstein. The music swells one final time, fading into silence. The audience is left suspended between awe and reflection, caught in that fragile moment where science becomes poetry, and mystery becomes meaning. The eternal dialogue between humanity and the cosmos, forever unfinished, forever beautiful. The screen opens to silence. An infinite blackness fills the frame, not emptiness but potential. Slowly, a faint vibration ripples across the void, like the first tremor before creation. A single photon flickers into existence, splitting the darkness with its fragile light. The narration begins in a low, measured tone, reflective yet charged with awe. Before time began, there was only uncertainty. Before existence, only possibility. What Einstein called God's thoughts may not have been equations at all, but the silent symmetry from which all things emerge. The soundscape expands into a hum of frequencies, subatomic murmurs, cosmic echoes, and the audience is drawn into a realm that exists beyond imagination, the quantum origin of everything. The scene transitions from the cosmic to the microscopic. Visuals depict particles swirling through fields of color, waves collapsing into forms, energy crystallizing into matter. The narration continues, "Every atom, every star, every heartbeat is born from the same invisible law, a balance between chance and necessity." Einstein's quest for unity was not in vain. He was chasing the architecture of reality itself. The pacing is slow but hypnotic, each frame unfolding like a revelation. The audience feels suspended between scales, from galaxies billions of light-years wide to the trembling dance of quarks within the nucleus of an atom. This section explores what Einstein's legacy became, not merely his discoveries but his unfinished questions. In the decades since his death, scientists have carried his vision forward in ways he could scarcely have imagined. The camera glides across laboratories filled with glowing machinery, quantum computers whispering in superconductive silence, and particle accelerators stretching like metal cathedrals into the horizon. The narration deepens. The modern age of physics is the age of his echoes, of minds chasing the symmetry he sought, of experiments that bring us closer to the truth he felt but could not prove. Contrast takes center stage once again, the precision of technology versus the poetry of mystery. We see the Large Hadron Collider roaring to life, beams of protons colliding at nearly the speed of light, intercut with the serenity of a child staring up at the stars. The voiceover bridges these worlds. "We build machines the size of cities to study particles smaller than thought. We smash the universe apart to see how it holds together." In every explosion of knowledge, Einstein's shadow remains. the reminder that discovery and doubt are one and the same. The narrative shifts to the great scientific revolutions that followed. General relativity, once a radical dream, became the foundation for cosmology, the science of the universe itself. Quantum mechanics, once doubted, became the language of all modern technology. Yet, at the intersection of these two triumphs lies the greatest problem of all, the one Einstein foresaw but could never solve, the unification of the very large and the very small. Cinematically, this tension is rendered through breathtaking visuals, a galaxy spiraling outward dissolving into a particle orbiting within an atom. The camera zooms endlessly inward, connecting macrocosm and microcosm until they become one continuous dance. The narration takes on a tone of reverent curiosity. Einstein's dream of a unified field theory was not a failure. It was a prophecy. Today, physicists continue the same search under new names: string theory, loop quantum gravity, the theory of everything. All are echoes of one man's insistence that the universe must make sense. The pacing accelerates, rapid sequences of equations flashing across the screen, simulations of multidimensional strings vibrating in unseen spaces, computers rendering the unseen architecture of spacetime. Yet amid the spectacle, the voice softens again. But even now, the answer remains hidden. For every door we open, 10 more appear. Perhaps the universe is not waiting to be solved, but to be understood. A philosophical current flows beneath the science. The narration asks quietly, what if the unity Einstein sought is not mathematical but existential? What if the separation between observer and observed, between us and the cosmos, is the illusion? The screen fills with haunting imagery, neurons firing like constellations, galaxies clustering like the neural maps of the human brain. The music swells with wonder as the narration continues. Maybe the ultimate theory is not written in symbols, but in consciousness itself, the awareness through which the universe sees itself. This idea, that consciousness and cosmos might be reflections of each other, becomes the emotional core of this section. The camera drifts through scenes of human life, an artist painting light across a canvas, a mother holding her child, a scientist watching an experiment unfold, a monk meditating beneath an ancient tree. Each image is connected by rhythm and resonance, each act, from creation to contemplation, portrayed as a form of observation. The narration ties these threads together. The quantum world tells us that reality is not fixed. That observation gives birth to being. Every act of awareness, every question, every heartbeat becomes a small act of creation. In seeking the universe, we become part of its unfolding. The tempo slows. The music becomes introspective. We return to Einstein's desk, not as it was but as a symbolic reconstruction. His equations hover in the air, lines of chalk turning into strands of light. The narration continues. He believed the universe was written in the language of mathematics. But perhaps the deeper truth is that mathematics itself is written in the language of mind. The same mind that questions, imagines, and dreams. A soft wind moves across the paper on his desk, scattering his notes like stars drifting apart. The visual metaphor suggests a reconciliation, the idea that mystery, not certainty, is the foundation of knowledge. The next segment draws the viewer into the frontier of modern physics. The narration grows in intensity. Now, a century after Einstein's greatest fears and discoveries, we stand at a new horizon. Quantum entanglement has defied distance. Time itself is being redefined. Black holes bend information into paradox. And gravity, the force he mastered, still hides its quantum secret. The screen bursts into visual energy, simulations of wormholes twisting through space-time, digital renderings of quantum foam, gravitational waves rippling through the void. The music rises, pulsing with cosmic rhythm. In every mystery we uncover, the narration says, we find the trace of his hand, the mark of a mind that refused to stop wondering. Then the pace slows again, the camera drifting through images of silence and solitude, the surface of a distant planet, the ripple of light across a quiet ocean, the reflection of stars in human eyes. The voiceover asks, but what if we never find the final equation? What if the truth Einstein sought is not an answer but a relationship, a dialogue between the universe and its own consciousness? The words resonate like poetry, inviting contemplation. Maybe the universe does not need to be solved. Maybe it only needs to be witnessed. At this point, the film transitions into a reflective montage, a global vision of humanity united by wonder. People across cultures look to the sky. A physicist in Geneva, a farmer in Africa, a child in Tokyo, an astronaut orbiting the Earth. The narration bridges science and spirit, Across every border and every language, curiosity binds us. It is the same force that moved Einstein's pen, that split the atom, that launched our species beyond its cradle. The quest to understand is what makes us human. The camera rises from the surface of the Earth, through clouds and atmosphere, until the entire planet glows against the black of space, fragile, luminous, alive. The philosophical crescendo continues. We are the universe asking itself what it is. Every discovery, every act of creation, every theory and dream, all of it is the cosmos learning its own reflection. The imagery turns transcendent, galaxies swirling like thoughts, atoms pulsing like hearts, energy patterns weaving through all things. The narration grows softer but more powerful. Einstein's theory did not fail. It evolved, into us, into the minds that still wonder, into the questions that still have no end. In the final act of this section, the narration takes on a tone of closure, though not finality. Perhaps the theory that scared Einstein was never meant to be understood, but to remind us that understanding itself has limits. Beyond every horizon lies another. Beyond every law, a deeper mystery. The camera moves slowly through the universe, past nebulae, through black holes, into realms of pure light. Then, seamlessly, it transitions into human imagery. The synapses of the brain, the spark of imagination, the widening eyes of a child seeing the stars for the first time. The music returns to the motif from the beginning, the faint hum of creation. The narration concludes, the story of Einstein is not just the story of science. It is the story of us, of being suspended between knowing and not knowing, between chaos and order, between wonder and fear. The theory that scared Einstein was not a threat. It was a mirror, showing us the mystery at the heart of all things, and the courage it takes to face it. The final image fades to a view of the night sky over Princeton. The same stars Einstein once gazed upon, still burning, still speaking. The camera drifts upward through them, faster and faster, until they blur into streaks of light. The screen fades to white. The voice returns one last time, calm and eternal. Perhaps someday we will find the theory of everything. But until then, wonder is enough. The music swells, the white fades into the soft glow of dawn, and the words appear across the screen. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Albert Einstein. The sound of a heartbeat fades into silence. The audience is left breathless, not with answers but with reverence. The film ends not with closure but with continuation, the eternal pulse of curiosity that began with Einstein, and that will outlive us all. The screen begins in darkness, not the emptiness of nothingness, but a darkness alive with texture, like the space between thoughts before an idea is born. A slow, distant vibration hums beneath the silence. Then, faintly, light begins to ripple across the void. Not a beam, not a flash, but a trembling shimmer like consciousness awakening. The narration enters softly, almost as a whisper. The story of the universe is not over. The equations have not ended. And the questions that haunted Einstein still hum through every particle of existence. The sound expands, low frequencies merging with strings, the pulse of the cosmos itself. We drift through a sea of galaxies. Time slows. Stars explode in elegant silence. Nebulae unfurl like vast, living thoughts. For a century, the narration continues, we have tried to answer him, to find the unifying truth that reconciles the infinite with the intimate, the mathematical with the mystical. Yet the deeper we look, the more we realize that the line between science and wonder was never real at all. The camera cuts to Earth. A sunrise floods the planet in gold, oceans glowing, mountains igniting with light. The music lifts into a crescendo of strings and choral whispers. We live in the age of Einstein's children, minds shaped by his questions, hearts guided by his courage to doubt. Every discovery we make is a continuation of his dream, that the universe is intelligible, that beneath chaos lies harmony, that behind mystery there is meaning. A montage unfolds, scientists in sterile rooms aligning laser beams, satellites scanning the cosmic background radiation, mathematicians filling glass walls with equations, astronauts floating in the silence of orbit. Their faces reflect not arrogance but humility, the quiet awe of beings staring into infinity. The narration deepens, the same curiosity that frightened Einstein, the same hunger that shook his faith in certainty, has become our greatest inheritance. We build machines that see further, instruments that listen deeper, yet we find the same truth he once spoke. The more we understand, the more mysterious everything becomes. Cinematic contrast pulses at the heart of the sequence, high-speed imagery of technological triumph intercut with moments of profound human stillness. A scientist stares into a particle collision, light bursting across her face. A monk closes his eyes beneath a banyan tree, breath aligning with wind. A child looks through a telescope, eyes wide with the same wonder that once filled Einstein's. The narration bridges these images with reverence. Across every culture, every century, the search has never truly been about knowledge. It has been about connection, the longing to belong to the story written in the stars. The visuals turn dreamlike. The camera travels through the interior of an atom, where protons spin like miniature suns, electrons orbiting like ghostly planets. Then, in a seamless transition, the same motion echoes in the spiraling arms of galaxies. Microcosm and macrocosm blend into one continuous motion. Einstein called it the cosmic religious feeling, the narrator says softly. The awe that comes not from faith or ritual, but from the recognition that everything, every atom, every star, every thought, is part of one grand and impossible whole. The tone slows, becoming intimate. We return to Princeton, Einstein's old office, preserved like a shrine. Dust floats through light from the window. His papers lie where he left them, untouched for decades. The camera moves slowly, reverently across his desk, pausing on his glasses, his pen, the yellowed pages of equations. The narration continues. He died with his chalk in hand, still searching. He did not find the final answer. But perhaps he found something greater, the peace that comes when one accepts that mystery is not the enemy of knowledge but its origin. A soft piano melody begins. The scene shifts to the present. A modern physicist stands at a whiteboard covered in complex equations. Her hand trembles as she erases one symbol and replaces it with another. Every generation, the narration says, takes up the chalk where the last one left off. The camera zooms in on the formula. It dissolves into an image of a black hole bending light, space curving under the weight of gravity. We are still trying to complete the sentence Einstein began. The pace builds again. The film moves through the frontiers of science. Gravitational wave detectors listening to the whispers of colliding stars, telescopes peering at the edge of the observable universe, quantum experiments probing the nature of reality itself. Each discovery feels like a new verse in an eternal poem. We have heard the echoes of creation, the narrator says, voice rising. We have watched time ripple. We have touched the borders of infinity. And yet, what we find there is not certainty, but wonder. The imagery becomes increasingly abstract and poetic. Waves of light morph into neural networks. Computer simulations of spacetime blend into the patterns of water rippling in slow motion. The narration draws parallels between the universe and consciousness. Perhaps the final theory is not a formula, but a realization, that the mind which questions and the cosmos it studies are reflections of the same mystery. That the universe is aware of itself, through us. The music builds, shimmering with violins and choirs. The camera moves through vast sequences of connection. Data streams flowing like constellations, human faces illuminated by starlight, city lights seen from orbit forming neural pathways of civilization. The narration swells. We are the instruments of the universe's curiosity. The atoms that once burned in the hearts of stars now form the hands that write equations, the eyes that gaze at galaxies, the hearts that ache for meaning. Pause. Silence. The image slows to the quiet breathing of a single person, an elderly physicist sitting by the ocean at night, the Milky Way mirrored in the water before him. The narration softens. Einstein feared randomness, yet perhaps what he truly feared was the end of meaning. But meaning, like energy, cannot be destroyed. It transforms. It expands. It finds new forms in every generation that refuses to stop wondering. The waves shimmer with reflected starlight, merging sky and sea into one. From there, the story expands beyond science, into the human spirit. His legacy is not an equation. It is a question. What kind of universe births a mind that can ask about itself? Images of art, music, philosophy, and love flow in harmony with images of galaxies and equations. A violinist plays under the aurora borealis. A mathematician sketches patterns in the sand. A child releases a balloon that drifts upward, fading into the stars. The narration becomes lyrical. Perhaps beauty itself is the bridge between reason and mystery, the quiet language in which the universe speaks to those who listen. The final act begins with a crescendo of motion. The film accelerates through history, the Big Bang, the birth of stars, the emergence of life, the rise of consciousness. The camera zooms outward until the entire cosmos appears as a single living organism. The narration rises with orchestral power. From stardust to sentience, from chaos to thought, the universe has been climbing toward awareness. Every particle, every life, every question is part of that ascent. Then, suddenly, stillness. The screen fades to black. A heartbeat echoes once, twice. Light returns, a single glowing point in the dark. It expands slowly until it becomes a human eye, reflecting galaxies within its iris. The voice returns, calm and eternal. Einstein looked into the universe and saw the face of mystery. Now the universe looks back, through us. The closing montage is both intimate and cosmic. Scientists embrace after an experiment succeeds. Children run through rain. Lightning flashes across a mountain range. Waves crash. Galaxies spin. The narration concludes, the theory that scared Einstein was not wrong, it was incomplete. It revealed that uncertainty is not chaos but creation. That every moment, every breath, is the universe choosing itself anew. The final lines are spoken with reverent calm, as the screen fills once more with stars. We are not observers standing apart from the cosmos. We are its voice, the part of infinity that dares to wonder why it exists. The stars pulse brighter, forming the faint outline of Einstein's face in the light. Then, slowly the stars disperse, fading back into the dark. Music swells into a final crescendo, orchestral, choral, timeless. The last words appear on the screen, glowing softly. The eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility. Albert Einstein. The music fades into the deep hum of the universe. The final image lingers, a single photon traveling endlessly through the dark, a symbol of thought, of light, of curiosity without end. The narration returns in a whisper, the voice of the cosmos itself, and so, the journey continues. Fade to black.